Told me to do a smashing job today, and now that I have a gavel, I can't. Good morning, all. Before we get started, let's just do our official business, our roll call and determination of quorum. Dan?
Mr. Alley.
Present.
Mr. Lamb. Mr. Bayo.
Present.
Mr. Fisher.
Here.
Ms. Fleischhacker.
Here.
Here, Tony. Hannah. Ms. Jordan.
Here.
Ms. Kitchell.
Here.
Mr. Framer.
Here, and Larry is here as well.
Aaron.
Here.
Peterson.
Okay, we have a quorum. Well, thank you all for being here today. Good morning. Happy New Year. And for those online, we really want to welcome, thank you for joining as well. And you might have noticed that I don't look and sound like our normal chair, Mr. Dan Peterson. He had an unavoidable work trip he needed to take, but he sends his regards and he provided us with a few comments here and there that we'll sprinkle in so you won't know these comments. Before we get started, though, I would like to just take a quick moment. If any of you have paid attention to the news and the tragic air accident that happened in Washington, D.C., I think it's appropriate to just take a quick moment of silence for all who were impacted. Thank you all. So we have a full agenda today, both looking back at 2024 milestones and looking forward to the work we are undertaking in 2025. Part of that work is a committee that a lot of people may not know about. It's the Performance and Compensation Committee. And we met recently, and I just want to toss it over to Judd, our past chair, who chairs that committee, and just give him a quick moment to share some things with you all, some information.
Sure. So the Performance and Compensation Committee met as we were asked to, and we're supposed to bring a recommendation for performance and compensation to the members here during this meeting. We recently met and talked about the incentive program and all the things that Commissioner Lowry has done over the past year. So we had a couple meetings. We came up with a recommendation based on the excellent performance of the commissioner. We unanimously agreed that Commissioner Lowry had met and exceeded his incentive initiatives on many levels. I won't go into detail here today, but I just wanted to recognize that everything that Commissioner Lowry was trying to accomplish last year was accomplished, done very well. With that, I will say that we're going to defer to, we have a new governor, we have new structures in place for the education vertical. So today I'm gonna ask that we pause and bring this recommendation back once we see how things shake out with the budget and deference again to our new governor. So this will be presented again at a later meeting. That's okay with everyone. So again, Commissioner Lowry did an excellent job, and we really just wanted to commend him for the things that were accomplished last year. But we will bring this back up at a later meeting.
And Dan had asked me to make a comment of thank you, Chris, for your fantastic leadership. So we absolutely want to thank our hosts from Vincennes University here today, and particularly this very special place that is a partnership amongst numerous institutions but led by Vincennes. And it means so much to us commission members when we can actually be able to meet on site where it's really the magic of learning is taking place right here. I spent a little bit of time on the Made in Plainfield website, and I noted on your homepage that you summed up in one sentence, I think, a really important aspect of why we're all here today. And that is, by connecting the community to education and training opportunities, We facilitate the connection of local employers with highly skilled and trained individuals for high demand, high wage jobs. And you do it well, so thank you. And so that we can learn more, I'm going to conclude my remarks and now invite Tony Hahn, Vice President of Government and Legal Affairs at Vincennes, to address the group today.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, and thank you for the compliments. Welcome to Made at Plainfield. And for those who have not been here before, this doesn't look like a traditional university campus where we host you. And that's because this is a very unique collaboration between the city, universities, where we are one of the tenant partners. We're here on the first floor, and you can see through the glass the kind of training that we do here. You'll also hear more from our Vice President, Dave Tucker, about some of the additional business and industry training we do both here and around the state. So Made at Plainfield came about several years ago. And this is the third meeting we've hosted here. In fact, I believe Commissioner Lowry was named a commissioner at this facility.
So he's also made at Plainfield?
He has been. He's a maid. And I'm not exaggerating, we get calls regularly from communities that say, we toured Made at Plainfield. How do we do that in our community? And the first thing I say is you need the gumption to push through and figure it out, because this had stops and starts along the way. And I think Commissioner Lowry in previous life was part of that. And it takes a lot of work, but once it's built, it's effective, it's beautiful, it works. So I want to introduce you to Brandy Wethington, who oversees the Made at Plainfield facility, and she can tell you a little bit about how it works, some of the other partners, and why this is such a unique collaboration. And then after some official business, you'll hear from Dave Tucker from the VU team about the work we do here. So thank you. Have a great day here. We'll have lunch across the hall. Bathrooms are out in the lobby. See me if you need anything. Brandy?
Hello, friends. I want to welcome you all to Made. He gave you a little background there, but I can expand on that just a little bit, but I'll keep it brief. I hear word on the street is half of you probably haven't even been here before, but that also means half of you have. So welcome back to those who have. It's nice to see you again. And those who haven't, I would love to show you around. If you'd like that opportunity today, we'll be here during and after. So come and find me or one of my colleagues and we'll show you what everybody's been up to. So I just want to say thank you to all of you who were there to help make this happen and continue to help us make it happen. This is truly a collaborative. It couldn't have happened without so many people in this room that were part of growing this and building this idea. And now here we are in our fourth year of operation and really doing some amazing things because of the partnerships and the collaborative that we formed. So some of the people that take up space here, which we love, are the Department of Homeland Security. Did you know they were here? Their Fire and Public Safety School is happening this weekend. They're having tons of people coming from all over the state, and they're going to practice some of the drills that make them great firefighters and public safety officials. We're excited for that. So it will be a busy weekend here, but it's been a busy week as well. We've had some of our friends from Vincennes participating. As you know, they're here. We have Ivy Tech upstairs. We're thrilled to have the number of students that they bring through the doors, which has increased by 30% over the past year even. As we see college going rates going down, it's not happening here at Made because we provide accessible education to our community all around us. I don't know if it's a popular thing to say, but over 80 to 90% of the students that come through our doors here are not even from Hendricks County. So we're not here just being made at Plainfield. We're made of our entire country and even Canada too. Toyota, with our friends at Vincennes, is bringing people from Canada and Mexico here to train. We've got people from all over the world that are coming to train for a day, for a week, or even for months at a time here at Made. Our second year doubled over our first year numbers, which was 10,000 the first year, 20,000 the second year, and we're just now totaling our third year numbers. But I think we're going to see something similar, maybe not doubling, but it's continuing to increase. And so we've got a lot of demand for the things that we're doing here and so many possibilities for the future too. We also have Indiana State University. Butler was knocking literally on the door on Monday saying, hey, we want to be part of this too. So we'll see where that goes. We also have Work One. Yesterday we had a great big event that I want to tell you about, but before I tell you about that, when I walked in the door, we had about 50 people in the lobby waiting to get in the door of Work One, and they were looking for opportunities. It was a job fair that they thought was just going to be a small little gathering. and they just were overflowing. They had 120 people come through just in the first 2 hours of the morning. So there's a lot of amazing things happening here on all levels, but they're all kind of integrated. We're all looking for that next step in our career and how we can enhance our lives, our quality of lives, and the career steps that we have available to us. So with all of our partners here, Hendricks College Network likes to encourage everyone and kind of create that community, but it's not a hard thing to do because everyone's excited about the opportunities that we have. Something that I want to tell you guys about that I thought might be of interest. Yesterday in this room at about this time, we had gathered 80 of our closest friends from the community. We had educators, administrators, but mostly we had employers, and they were coming to talk to us about the possibilities of what we can do from some of the things that were put into place from House Bill 1002 and the things that continue from there. You guys have been kind enough to fund Hendricks College Network, and therefore we've been able to right here at MADE put some of those things into place. And that was one of those events yesterday. We got a capacity building grant from you guys. We're part of the career coaching grants. And what we were talking about yesterday was all of that. How do we come together as employers, as educators and administrators, and as intermediaries to say, hey, we are here to help you make this an easy process. There are things that are in place that are going to be successful in the future. But in the meantime, let's start taking those steps together. So to have feedback from all of those people that were excited enough to take their time away from their jobs and their bottom line to come in, I was quite humbled that they wanted to spend that time with us. I think we're going to see some great progress from that. They gave us some feedback. We'll be sending out some thank yous to further connect with them today, and we'll let you know on our progress on that in the future too. Again, there's so many incredible things happening. I don't want to tell you about all of them right now, but I want to tell you about time. Connect with me and hear more about that if you have some ideas for us. One of the things I'm always asking for is give me your crazy ideas. We've got 35 acres here. We've got 100,000 square feet. We've almost outgrown it, but we've got potential for more. And we've got motivated people behind us. This is a great time to be in workforce development, education, and we're excited about it. So let's keep that momentum going. And I think people like you and all of you are the right ones to help us keep that going. So thank you again for having us here today. If there's anything through the day that I can help with, I'll be around. If I can answer any questions right now, I'm happy to. Well, let me turn it over to one of our friends that's been around from the beginning too. I think David Tucker, you're up next. He's a good friend and pal. We have a lot in common, both personally and professionally. So I'm excited for him to share something for you. Okay.
While David's getting set up, we can get a little bit of business taken care of, which is approving our minutes. So you all received the agenda book. The minutes are there starting on page 1. May I have a motion to?
It's actually correction. The end of the minutes reflecting, the business item. I assume the resolution is on to the R28.7, it's actually part of the academic program, but the minutes don't reflect the vote.
Yeah, we'll take that as an amendment and.
I move we amend the minutes to reflect the vote that was taken.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, like that. So then do we move to approve the minutes with the amendment that we just, do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes are passed, and now we are excited to have Dave, Vice President of Workforce Development and Community Services for Texas University. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for having us today. Welcome back to the commission, to MADE. Commissioner, you were announced here in 2022, and we're glad to have you back here in 2025. Commission staff, colleagues, esteemed guests, we're all very glad to be here today. When given the opportunity to present to the commission, VU President Ted Johnson, who's here, suggested that it would be a good idea for us to visit with
campus, our campus in Jasper, at the EPA Training Center, and school for the deaf, some of our other locations. But my presentation today is workforce impacts beyond credit hours and degrees. Really want to visit with you a little bit about what VU is doing for Indiana's workforce that isn't focused exclusively on students who come to us to get a certificate or an associate's degree or bachelor degree. So thinking about statewide impacts, first thing I want to do is show you a map of where we are in the state of Indiana. There's a map.
Off that screen. We're going to work on this real quick.
Bring it up. So there's the map. And as you the geography of Indiana, Knox County, there in southwestern Indiana, where you see both a star and a circle, that's where our main campus is. And you can see pretty much the entire southwestern quadrant of Indiana filled that VU does workforce development work. I think one of the things that we really want to point out to you is the fact that we are there in virtually every county. In many of the counties, we're in multiple locations. And the other important part about that map is that we've got 95 sites where we do workforce development work. Only 5 of those sites are VU named and branded sites. This is one of them, Made at Plainfield, which is a flagship facility. But 90 of those sites are community partners. Whether that's an employer partner where we're on site with them, whether that's a Work One location, whether that's a K through 12 high school or a career center, or whether it's a public library or other community site, we're in the community doing this workforce development work. And we saturate that southwestern quadrant of Indiana. We do a lot of work in other parts of the states, as you know, from the work that we do in the career centers, K through 12 and dual credit. But that's really where the heart of our workforce work is done. Moving to the next slide. Do want the commission to be reminded of the fact that one very important program that we run around workforce is the non-credit next level jobs programming. We have worked with the commission over the last several years. That funding had been in the Department of Workforce Development. It moved over to the Commission for Higher Education. And every year we work very closely with commission staff on what we think our needs might be for the coming year in non-credit training that we might do. We make the budget. We spell out what our expectations are for what we'll use that money for. And every year that this money has been housed with the commission, and we've spent it all exactly the way that we've agreed that we're going to do. A couple of things about just the last couple of programming years. In 2023-24, you funded us about $800,000. We trained 228 students. The 2 main program areas that we worked in were allied health. When you think of allied health, you're thinking about supportive people in the healthcare industry. Certified nursing assistants or CNAs, certified clinical medical assistants or CCMAs, some of those types of spots, as well as truck drivers. So commercial driver's license drivers. In 23-24, we spent all that money in those 2 areas, trained and certified 228 people with that money. This year, we're in the midst of 24-25. We're on budget to spend the $1,035,000 that you've allocated to us. We've added one additional program area because industrial maintenance, automation, and robotics in Indiana is a very huge and important training area. That's what, if you get a chance to tour this main building, if you get to tour many of our sites, you'll see that we train lots of technicians in the manufacturing and the distribution areas. So we've added that this year. You added some money for us. Thank you.
We'll train 22 more people, all focused on industrial maintenance. So we'll do 250 certified, completed students in both allied health, CDL, industrial maintenance. That month, when we hit July 1 on our fiscal budget, and we know how much money the commission is. And we've got employers who have jobs for these people. There's not a single person who goes through this training who doesn't have a job, a full-time job that's typically better than the job that they had when they came, waiting for them at the end of that. So thanks, Commissioner. And of Indiana. Want to talk about the VU locations, the flagship spots where you can see our VU.
If Dave could keep talking into the microphone, he keeps cutting out.
Cutting out.
If Dave could keep talking into the microphone, it would be great.
Programs that we have there. It's a partnership with Amazon where we do the. We've been doing that program with them since 2020. In 4 full years of operation with them, we've trained over 1,000 mechatronics apprentices from 42 states across the country. They come to campus. They have a full experience. They're there for 12 weeks. And they train all day, every day. They return to their fulfillment centers as Tech Ones, so that and it's just a wonderful program. We're building on that. We do a lot of other programming at the Indiana Center for Applied Technologies. Really wanted to point that out as one of the best programs that we have. Indiana has 11,000, Amazon has 11,000 employees in Indiana who qualify for a program called Career Choice. All of these people work in fulfillment centers in multiple corners of the state of Indiana. So when I say it does bring people around America, but we have had many people who've taken advantage of this program, upgraded their skills, and are doing that in facilities in Indiana. We have a Center for Advanced Manufacturing and Logistics in Fort Branch, Indiana. That's Gibson County. Those of you familiar with Toyota, we're located 4 miles from the Toyota plant. There we do safety, we do mining, we do firefight candidate physical ability tests, and then we have a dedicated lab to train Toyota maintenance technicians there. We have a Center of Technology Innovation and Manufacturing in Jasper. That's on our Jasper campus. It's a great supplement to what we do in 2-year programming, primarily degree programming there in Jasper. Again, focused on advanced manufacturing. All those strong manufacturers there in Jasper. Master Brand, Kimball, Jasper Engine Transmission. A great town with a bunch of great employers who rely on us for workforce training, to industrial maintenance. Allied Health, a great relationship with Memorial Hospital there, construction training, leadership. 2 other sites I want to mention that are VU branded sites. This facility where you are, you've heard a lot about it. I hope you get a chance to look around today during the breaks or during lunch, see all of the great equipment that we brought here, particularly focused on logistics, and advanced manufacturing and industrial maintenance. This is the place where we start the Amazon program, but Amazon wanted to scale it to a size that make more sense for us to bring to campus. But this is where we started it.
We also have a truck driver training school, which many of the students are funded by Next Level Jobs, come through here. Our driving range is over at the Wayne Township, Fire Department headquarters and emergency management facility that you can see on 465 and go around the west side. And then we also have a training center in Lebanon, the GHOS Training and Education Center, where we're partnered with Haas Automation, one of the largest CNC machine manufacturers in North America. We do machining there. We do apprenticeship training for Caterpillar. We do training for the Department of Corrections, which is a laudable program for offenders who are nearing the end of their time in prison and have an opportunity to train so that when they transition out, they're employable. And we've got employers who want to give second chance employment to those folks. Talking about community partners. Yes. Oh, sure.
The program that,
Yes.
which program did you say?
They're coming out with certifications in machining. Yes. So we do industry recognized certifications in CNC machining. And so those offenders come to Lebanon in the evenings after we've shut down the day operations. For 12 weeks, they come out with, I believe, six industry recognized certifications in milling and lathe for CNC.
Thank you.
And also, feel free to chime in with any questions along the way. Very interactive as you like. Maybe talk to. Yeah, sure.
Talk a little bit on the economics, as you're doing a lot of these things for the Amazons and companies. What kind of, how do the economics of that work? How much are they paying versus state programs and reimbursements and things of that?
Sure. So I'll talk specifically about the Amazon program. The Amazon program is one funded completely by the company. So Amazon pays the tuition to Vincennes. They work students out of their fulfillment centers, and they pay those students while they're in training at VU. So those students, when they come to work at 7:30 in the morning and released at 6:30 at night, they're getting paid as if they were on a shift. And then they also pay their room and board while they're training for us. We find right now that workforce training is really focused on incumbent workers. When you have a situation in the state of Indiana where unemployment hovers around 4%, that means that most everybody who wants a job, who's employable, has a job. And so our real focus most of the time is working with employers or employees who want to somehow upskill those people. So funding for that training comes in a variety of ways. There's Next Level Jobs funding. So for some of that truck driver training that we do, those are folks that may be installing fiber optic cable, on a crew. And like, hey, I can make more money if I'm driving the truck. So I have a CDL. So we fund that. So that's an example of how that Next Level Jobs money will be paid. Let's say Ascension St. Vincent's in Evansville. They've got a lot of employees who work in food service. They work in housekeeping. And when they see an opportunity to become a certified clinical medical assistant, and they can use Next Level Jobs to do that, well, what a great opportunity. So there's a combination of employer funds, of state and federal funds that all go into that. And we're constantly trying to negotiate, and line up how is it that we can take somebody who says, yes, I'm interested in this kind of training, whether that if they're an employee or an employer says, hey, I'd like to upskill this number of employees into particular positions. We're constantly going, okay, how can we use commission money? How can we use Department of Workforce Development money? How can we get employers to buy in to this kind of training? Okay.
Thank you, David.
Sure.
Yes,
I have a comment or question. This
Sure.
Larry, when we train people for Amazon, what fees are we charging them? And I don't want to get into a discussion, but I would think that they would pay, our state subsidizes, makes contribution to Vincent's budget. And I would think that we would not want to subsidize Amazon. And so that whatever fees we charge Amazon, I think ought to be the gross fees rather than the net fees subsidized by the state. I'm just making this comment that you could look into.
yes. Good point, Larry. It's good to hear you too, hear your voice. You and I worked together on some projects up in South Bend way back when, and glad that you're on the commission now. And thanks for everything you do for education up there up in northern Indiana. That work that we do is we charge tuition and fees in as a one, it's kind of a one-time charge that includes all of the training and education. But those students do earn 18 credit hours and a certificate of program completion that is stackable to a degree. And so to your point, what we've built into that number is a $250 tuition per credit hour, which represents out-of-state tuition for those for those. So yes, they're considered out-of-state employees. They pay an out-of-state, what's equivalent to an out-of-state rate.
Dave, good to catch up with you again, and thank you.
Sure, thanks.
Dave,
Yeah.
that line, you may not have this down, so later it'd be
Sure.
good to hear. The percentage of the students that are going to the Amazon program, how many are in Indiana? Because it's not scaling of Amazon across the US. I'd be interested to hear the percentage of how many of those students that participate are Indiana students.
Yeah,
And if you don't have it now, that's fine.
I think it's somewhere in the area of like 200 students have come through the program from Indiana out of 1,000 total. Now that number was it skewed a little bit on the front end because a facility called Indy 9, which is in Greenwood, came on, and we trained all of their technicians up front. But it's a little less than 20%. Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Well, just a point of clarification, we're not funding, we're not using state dollars to fund the Delta 800 out of state. We're only using state dollars to fund the in-state, kind of a follow-up to Kathy's.
Right, and we really aren't even using state funds, to be honest with you. I mean, we don't enroll them in kind of the typical, per, semester. The state students aren't enrolled as state versus out of state. So, and it's important to know that what we do in Workforce Development Community Services at VU is a separate budget.
Yeah.
So we don't use state funds to do what we do directly especially from the standpoint of tuition.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure. And we're very conscious of that. The work that we do for the workforce is focused on what Indiana needs. So advanced manufacturing, transportation, distribution, logistics, healthcare, IT. Those same pillars that you're focused on are the same pillars that we're focused on. But we're fortunate to have certain partners, like Amazon, like John Deere, like Cummins, who have a huge presence here in Indiana. And we benefit from the fact that they want to train their Indiana employees, but they also have employees outside of the state who they recognize Vincennes as the place that they ought to send them. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Moving now to community partners, as we talked, we've got these 5 facilities that are branded VU. We got 90 facilities that are in some way a community partner of one kind or another. I just wanted to touch on some of these programs that we run. You're familiar with the Work One system. We're partnered here with the Work One system here at Plainfield. This is Region 5, which geographically is kind of referred to as the donut counties. What VU does is we're the service provider, which means we staff the Work Ones in Region 7, which is the Terre Haute region, Vigo, and the counties kind of surrounding that, and out to the east, out to Putnam or Greencastle. And then we do everything in relation to the Work One in Region 8. We're the regional operator, we're the one-stop operator, we're the service provider. Since we do everything Work One in Region 8, that's the Bloomington region. So basically Monroe all the way down to Paoli or Orange County. And we touch 20,000 people a year through that programming. We also, in the fiscal year 23-24, the Work One system paid for 246 customers to go through certification or education. And if you're thinking about the Terre Haute region, or you're thinking about the Bloomington region, even though VU runs that programming, the higher ed that those students go to is primarily doled out to Indiana State and Ivy Tech in Terre Haute, and Ivy Tech in Bloomington. So we've got great sister colleges and universities in Indiana. We're very comfortable when we have a person who comes to us who has a need for higher ed to get them into the right. And we have 14 partner locations in our Work One operations that we run in Region 7 and Region 8. One of the subgroupings of what goes on in the Work Ones right now is the Jobs for America's Graduates program, or the JAG program. That's a program that has grown substantially just in the last year. And that's why I wanted to capture this year's numbers for that. The JAG program is a high school program for high school students who are in jeopardy of dropping out. So it's really a dropout prevention program. But at the end of the programming, these students graduate at a higher rate than their peers, and they're better prepared to go to college than their peers are. And so in that program for this year, we've got 896 students enrolled at 38 different high schools and middle schools across Region 7 and Region 8. These are great workforce programs. The JAG program is designed for when a high school graduates, they're on one of three tracks. They're going to go to higher ed, which is great for us, great for this group. They're going to go to the workforce, which we're working on a plan to train them to be ready to go to a job, or they're going to go into military service. So it's a wonderful program that VU is very, very glad to support. And when those students come to VU, like I said, they're very well prepared to succeed. Want to touch on adult basic education. We're an adult ed provider in Southern Indiana. We did about 1,700 students last year. 152 of those got their high school equivalency. From a math standpoint, that doesn't sound real good, except for the fact that it's really only about 55% of those adult ed students are in high school equivalency programming. The other 45% are in English as a second language. It is a very, very growing program where we serve, but we had 125 students earn workforce certificates, got 9 locations. We do have 9 employer training partners. That's a very important component of adult ed, that we aren't just focused on people picking up high school equivalencies. And people don't come to us just to pick up the certification. They come to us because they need a high school certification to get a job. And so, for example, just this January, we started full-time programming at Toyota in English as a second language. And we're at 8 other employer partner sites. We do statewide allied health training. As I mentioned before, that focuses on CNAs, CCMAs, QMAs, and phlebotomy. We're partnered with the Associated Builders and Contractors. Those are the non-union construction contractors around the state of Indiana. You saw our 2 sites up in northeastern Indiana, north central Indiana. Those are ABC sites where we train construction apprentices. It's a wonderful program. Most of our apprentices are focused on their trade and focused on working with us to get their journey person certificate, but that's coupled with a VU degree. And so many of those students are taking college credits with us. Many of them complete their 4-year construction apprenticeship and earn both a journeyman's card and a VU degree. Subaru of Indiana, we're partnered with them in Lafayette. We do industrial maintenance training with them. We have a full-time faculty member that's embedded at the Subaru plant. We have continuous training of technicians, similar to what I described with Amazon, only in the automotive world where we recruit people off the line who've been working in production for years. They come off the line to learn industrial maintenance in one of the 5 main production areas there at Subaru. They train half a day with us. They work half a day. This programming goes on for about a half a year. When they graduate, they go into the technician ranks there. Our first class that we conducted back in 2014, so 11 years ago, in our first cohort of those students, the assistant manager of production at Subaru was amongst those people. He was a guy who had worked in production for 3 years. He went into this program, he became a technician, and now he's assistant production manager. Great story, and these are great things that we get to work on every day. A couple of programs that are fairly new, Jackson County Learning Center in Seymour. We partnered with a number of employers there to do industrial maintenance training. A great program the equipment there was funded by READY, who many of you are probably familiar with, regional funding that funded the equipment. And now we've trained over 100 people there in Jackson County in partnership with Cummins and Ison and Vallejo. And then we're partnered at Stonegate in Lawrence County or Bedford, where there's a Work One, similar situation to this, only on a smaller scale there in Bedford. So just wanted to give you a sense of what the scale of what we do. Now to the real stuff, the outcomes that we produce. Just want to talk a little bit about our major training areas in the previous fiscal year. Industrial maintenance, advanced manufacturing, machining. We've talked about some of those programs. Amazon, Toyota, Subaru, the Department of Corrections, 848 completions in that area. Allied Health, the CMAs, the CCMAs, the QMAs, 465 certified people with jobs waiting for them when they complete. Logistics and commercial driver's license. Talk about truck driving here. You'll see some of the logistics training that we do here in, Indianapolis, Crossroads of America, 524 completions in training in that area in the fiscal year. Construction trades, great programming in partnership with Associated Builders and Contractors, 1,645 apprentices in that program. And then many of you may not even know that there's mining in Indiana, underground mining, surface mining, 10,000 coal miners in southwestern Indiana. So we're the Federal Mine Safety Administration training provider for that. And so 3,000 miners trained, whether that's new miner training, whether that's refresher training that's required of miners around safety every 3 years. So when you add up what we do, we touch thousands of people every year in a positive way. I hope that I've also given you a sense of how gratifying it is for me to be able to work in this area, to be able to make positive impacts on literally thousands of people's lives every day here in Indiana, changing their lives. Thanks in many parts to what the commission does, thanks to our other state funders, our federal funders. But it's just a pleasure for me to be able to work in this area every day and be able to work with such good partners. And then we had a closing slide.
I think that was one of the names on it.
Yeah, well, it has the names on it. It also has the QR code. So there's a final page. You know how to reach Chuck Johnson, right? Yeah. Now you can use that. You know how to reach me. We've got some extra folders here for anybody who wants a hard copy of the presentation. The QR code, though, is important because that's the link to our employer gateway. So we just launched a VU employer gateway. Oh, there it is. And that should the QR code should work. But there's really three main components to what we're doing in our employer gateway. And that is hire our graduates, upskill your employees, and work with us on work-based learning programs. Those are the three big things that we do with employers here in the state of Indiana. We've been putting out strong associate and bachelor degree students for decades and decades. Employers around the state of Indiana rely on us for that. employers have grown to rely on us to upskill their employees. When I arrived at VU in 2007, we did about $400,000 in employer training. This year, we're going to do 7 million. So we've got, and that's due to great partners, employer partners who relied on us for decades for these graduates, and now they know they can rely on us to help upskill their employees. And then we've seen, as I talked to Dr. Jenner earlier, this growth in work-based learning is really, really important to the state. Because if you're a high schooler who doesn't know what you want to do, you can get a chance to work and learn and earn at the same time. If you're coming out of high school, you've got a chance to go to VU, work, earn, get a degree, graduate with no debt, and have a full-time job. Or if you're already working for an employer, you got a chance to go get a better job with better training and a career for the future. So it's great work that we get to do. Hopefully you've seen some of the things that we do in this area. I'll be glad to take some questions. If you have them, I'll also be around.
Just in the interest of time for the agenda.
Sure.
If you will be around,
Yeah.
then by all means, if you have questions. And we have your QR code too, right?
Absolutely.
We can find you.
Click on it. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So before I turn it over to Commissioner Lowry for his report, we definitely want to welcome Secretary Jenner and congratulate you on your appointment to be the lead of the education vertical on behalf of Governor Brown. So beginning today, we wanted Secretary Jenner with us pretty much. We invite her to every meeting, but now she's going to come. So she'll be joining us in the future whenever her schedule allows as an ex officio member. And so she won't be voting, but she's here to help us answer questions. And Dan Peterson did want me to mention too, how happy he is that you will be joining us at these meetings because the alignment across all of the components of education in this vertical is where the power is. So we're very excited to have you as part of the group. After Commissioner Lowry's report, we will ask Secretary Jenner to share a few thoughts regarding the transition and the new education vertical. So with that, turn it over to Commissioner Lowry.
Very good. Thank you, Nancy. I have to start too by thanking our friends here at Made in Plainfield. This is a special place. Our friend, by the way, Teresa Lovers is going to join us for lunch later today. We're going to do something special right before lunch. And it occurred to me this last time Teresa and I were here together, it was almost 3 years ago for sort of a transition.
Yeah.
And so we'll look forward to that. This is a really special place. I got pulled into this whole idea many years back by Scott Holdinger, superintendent of the school corporation. And just to see what the visionaries in this community have done is just remarkable. We talk a lot about our partnership, Pentagon, of course, at the commission, and business, education, government, philanthropy, and nonprofits. And this is a manifestation of that. Just something better for the community, better for Indiana, and just I'd be remiss if I didn't just say kudos. Brandy, thanks for your presentation. Dr. Tracy and others for hosting us. And then also to tag on this really quickly to thank our friends from Vincennes University. I thought President Johnson was back there somewhere. Is he back there somewhere? It's very good. But certainly, thank you to Tony, to David, to Dr. Johnson. I was looking at the list and I think I've been to, so many of your different locations. Had a funny thing occur shortly after I arrived. I think many of you know I tried to go to campuses a lot. I'd like to be there to be present. And on my third trip to the main VU campus, President Johnson greeted me, and I could tell like something was on his mind. He's kind of looked at me and he said, "Anything special you want to do today?" I said, "No, the floor is yours." Kind of looked at me and I said, "You can put out a restraining order on me, but I don't know how to do this work if I'm not present and seeing what you're doing." And what you're doing is impressive. The work that you do to really, really embed yourselves in the community. I think it was roughly 6,600 that I added up here, David, while you were talking, somewhere in my notes here. Folks who have, had an opportunity and have been able to seize a possibility. kind of fits in the Hope agenda, doesn't it? Hoosier opportunities and possibilities through education. And you really see that through all the Hoosiers across our state, very much so. It's embedded in the community, better lives for our fellow Hoosiers, and doing it hand in hand with employer partners. So we're grateful you host us and for the work you're already doing. I'd be remiss too if I didn't welcome Secretary Jenner to this table, to joining us. Some of you know we've been partners in crime, like well predating our official roles today. And it's just a delight to have her here and just working together even more so today. So welcome. We'll look forward to your comments too. My presentation is probably going to be more brief than what the agenda calls for. That may shock some of you. But I'm going to cover a handful of different things today. First of all, very briefly, a little bit about the transition. I know Dr. Jenner is going to talk more about that, but how it has affected our office. And I'm quite proud to say I think it's gone very well. And we'll talk about this just a little bit. As I think most or all of you in the room know, certainly commission members, we've tried to keep you up to date. Again, I hope I haven't bombarded you too much in the last 4 to 6 weeks with information. But the commission is part of the education vertical created by Governor Braun, one of 8 verticals with a cabinet secretary reporting directly to him. I will admit, when I saw it, I thought, this makes so much sense. I don't know how you have 30 or 40 direct reports. I've never done that. Yeah, I just don't know how to do it. So there was such logic in my view to this. The commission maintains, of course, its quasi-governmental, quasi-agency status. And under the executive order, Secretary of Education shall have responsibility for coordinating policy with commission and other, certainly with ERB, but then direct reporting, if you will, by some other agencies. All of this also brings us to some transitions that occurred. And again, probably most of you in the room know this, but I would just love to share a little bit of the backstory with you. Secretary Jenner and I and others were in conversations once Governor Braun announced the transition plans, the 8 verticals, including education. And this is one of those things where I can't recall exactly the conversations, Katie, but saying at 2 different points, you know, I know a person who would really serve well with you at that cabinet secretary level. You know, I'll either regret this, I won't regret it because we'll talk about that in a second, but more importantly, to have amazing people be able to go do even more amazing work. And as a leader, you cannot and should not stand in the way of that. So that resulted in, I think it was the first recommendation, that you look at a fellow named Seth Hinshaw to be the vertical CFO. And to say that selfishly, I relied on Seth for the last 2 years, 9.5 months, that he's counting, is an understatement. I think all of you know his reputation precedes him. We saw it yesterday in the Ways and Means Committee. Respect and admiration for the work he does, and he's moving into the right spot and doing already great work. Similarly, Dr. Jenner and I were talking about chief of staff, that kind of role. You already know where this went, right? And I said, yeah, you know, so there are people I've been able to hire and or promote over time. Did Garrison escape?
Yeah, that's bad.
He did, yeah, I knew he would, yeah. He had to do something, right? Yeah. Smarter than me. Yeah. I wasn't gonna say it.
We'll still clap.
Yeah, we will. As you probably know by now, Josh Garrison is the new chief of staff for the new education vertical. Just absolutely one of the best promotions. When he became chief of staff for us at the commission, one of the best personnel human resources moves I've ever made, been allowed to be party to, I guess, because it speaks to what an incredible leader he is. And again, he is in the right spot. I think that that triangle of Dr. Jenner and Josh and Seth, just, I know that just working together 24 hours a day is really good for Indiana. And I firmly believe, I think our team knows this, you do that with great talent. You don't stand in the way of it, you lift it up. So if we could, quick hand for Josh. We'll embarrass him later with that. So, related to those things, before I jump to the next page, I know commission members certainly know, and some of our partners, that over the past 2 years, we have been doggedly diligent about driving and implementing a strategic management process. I'm very clear, it's part of our R&D approach, rip off and duplicate, from our friends at Hillenbrand, BCG helped create that originally and so forth. And so we've been deploying this strategic management process, more on that in a moment too. But also a talent strategy. Getting great people to want to run to the commission and be part of our team. And I think we've been doing well with that. And also, I don't know, I think any person on our team who's spent any minutes in my office has heard me say, first, selfishly, please don't ever leave while I'm here. Secondly, if there's a great move for you, whether you see it or I see it, I'll be the first person to say, yo, that, or how can I help? And I say that because it's, what we get done at the end of the day, it's not the building of 101 West Ohio that matters. It's not, the tools, the computers, the desks, and all those things that we have. That it only comes down to roughly 60 people who are doing exceptional work. And then we have the ability to say, who's next? Who's on deck? Who can step into this void that people like Josh and Seth would leave us with? And with that, I would say we were able to make a pretty seamless transition. I know commission members especially know that literally within moments of the time that the move by Seth and Josh were announced, the moves were announced, we had our own announcements too. And that was that Michelle Ashcraft would continue to step up from her role of Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Program Officer, now to being Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer. And yes, she is the number 2 person in the agency now. One of the most remarkable leaders I've ever worked with. Purdue's lost a few years ago, the state's gained. Similarly, Brooke Kyle, who had been our Associate Commissioner for Business Intelligence, was asked to lift up to Senior Associate Commissioner for Business Solutions, and now has not only Business Intelligence, which I think all of you know, she built it with her team. It did not exist. And also has information technology in that space and finance. We also, doing remarkable work, added Allison Keir, who's our Associate Commissioner for Marketing and Communications, to our team. She and her team have led the recent research we've done with Target Mind Strategies. And of course, Matt Butler, who's been with us since early November. What I point out to y'all is 3 of those 4 people are new since the beginning of November. And the team is not missing a beat. Each one is exceptional, and the teams they lead are exceptional. This gives you a little bit of representation of how that structure looks at the cabinet level and a little bit around their duties. I know we sent to the commission members a more full sort of deck, the slide that's next to this one, showing the purview of each one of these 4 cabinet members. And, I was putting in my notes last night, I think we have the A team of leadership and those 4 leading the A team. And I know commission members, you've heard me say, I could not be more proud of the full team that we have at the commission. And in a second, I'm going to tell you part of the reason I feel that way. I pause, take a breath for a second. Nancy, if anybody wishes to comment or ask anything.
Well, I'll start, Chris. When the announcement was made, you were immediately lifted up your talent, and not all leaders do that. And I cannot thank you enough for lifting up Seth and Josh and others who were not stolen, other towns that discussed, that remain. But it helps the full vertical. We now represent 60% of the budget. So Seth has a big job. Josh is back at the State House with a lot of different 150 legislative opinions and others. And I just think it's for the betterment of all of us that we could blur our teams a bit, bring some talent together. So I just want to applaud you as a leader and say thank you. Michelle, I don't know the lead.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, since we're in the middle of this, both Brooke and Michelle's positions do need to be officially ratified by the commission. So this is a good point, I think, that maybe we're going to do that. So the promotion of Michelle Ascraft to Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer. May I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And Michelle, you can't see that. So similarly, we also need to have a motion for Brooke Kyle to serve as the Senior Associate Commissioner for Business Solutions. And may I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now we can clap. Thank you for indulging me just to get that little bit of business out of there. Heather?
And thank you. I'm so glad that that's official. Thank you, commission members. And Dr. Jim, thanks for your generous remarks, but it's this team. It's just, as I said, it's the full A team, but thanks for your kind remarks. Related to all of this, commission members, you know, this journey that we've had our team on with several things in the last couple of years. You know, coming together and creating the HOPE agenda, which is our strategic plan. Those first 5 speak to very specific things we're trying to accomplish, from enrollment to credit required learning, our adult strategy, completions, graduate retention, those things that we all know we measure them not only by the lagging, but leading indicators as soon as we can get data and then, you know, begin forecasting on all of that. And then the 2 big ones at the end. Social and economic mobility and prosperity, and then of course, being the state recognized for its strength of human capital. Aspiration to be top 10 in all those by 2030. You know the drill on that. And as you'll recall, commission members, what we have done with the strategic management process now 2 years in a row is to take those big goals and show every person on the commission staff how she or he would fit into that. And we have made it a requirement now 2 years in a row that each person has a very distinct, measurable goal for himself or herself that relates to this. And then we measure those. And individuals and supervisors also discuss those every quarter. I just noticed last night I have quarterly discussions coming up with my direct reports, reflecting the most recent quarter. And so we do that. And what we have started doing, of course, now you'll see in front of you, is rolling those things up, aggregating them, and saying, how well are we doing against the goals? If I could too, I would remind you that we believe in stretch goals. I think some of you on the commission may recall there were some big rocks along the way that we wanted to move, like pre-admissions. And when we, looked at something like that, it's only a couple of months out from implementing by summer and for the fall, the first year we did it. It would have been logical to say, hey, we'll do that next fall. And we can get everybody. But instead the team said, you know what, let's just give it a shot and see if we can do that by this September. And we got 80 or 85% of the high school seniors as one example. So stretch goals, I would just remind you of that. So factoring out the goals that were exempted. So I'll tell you about exempting a couple of goals for specific individuals along the way here. I'll give you a couple of examples. The team, these are the individual goals of each person in the commission staff, made progress toward, which is what we're looking for, made progress toward or actually exceeded the stretch goal that we had. I was very pleased with that. Some know I like to be pleased and rarely satisfied. I'll put the adjective on it though this time. I was very, very pleased with that. Individual hope goals, 5 hope goals from 84% to 91%. And then exempted, and I'll explain that when we look at the goals, factoring out the ones that were exempted, you can see it's 93 to 96%. And greatest success in those goals were made on goal 1, which is around enrollment, college going rate, not surprising to any of you. And then probably also not surprising to you, hope goal 4 around completion. And so those were the places where we had the greatest movement. So why do we exempt some? You notice we counted them both ways, exempted and non-exempted, because we want to know. A great example of that is this past year, when the federal government created a mess with FAFSA, we were building some things into our scholarship system. And literally, it couldn't be finalized and pursued because we didn't have everything we needed from the feds. I know that doesn't shock any of you, having heard me drone on about problems with the feds and FAFSA. So that's an example of it. Or, when an associate has left, they get replaced 2 or 3 months later. We've also, shifted some job duties, a specific goal somebody was pursuing now comes over to somebody else who has 3 goals. So we track all of that too. Maybe it's in the weeds, but we think it's important because then we can have very, very specific discussions with people on the team about how they're doing, how we can do better, what's the next big goal, how can we take the thing went from here to here and go to here. So each person gives her or his input. And related to that, one example, I know commission members remember sometime a year or so ago, me talking about Ty on our team, who I don't think Ty's your best. Ty is. I get to embarrass you 2 years in a row, Ty. Ty and I office like right next to each other. And so I'm always asking, so how's that going? How's it going? Next generation future educator scholars. I don't know how to put this, but what we've developed, this team has developed, is a culture around goals and around the work that leads to making improvement for our fellow users. So Ty and I were walking through the hall earlier this week, and we see each other all the time. We were at the desk, I'm getting coffee or something, and she said, "Hey, you got a minute?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, she basically said, we're close to the deadline of measuring applications for next generation future educator scholars. So backstory on that, you may recall that last year I had shared with you that the record we had for applications was short of 600, 5 something, Ty. It's like a quiz now because you just blown past it. And it had been 500 and something. And Ty and her direct supervisor said, we've never grown any more than just like, incrementally. And so they said 700. And they finished the year at 958. This year, why Ty kind of stopped me in the hallways to say, well, we're approaching the deadline. And we don't know the final number yet, everybody, but the team and Ty are going to blow the old record out of the water. And my point in telling you that is because, one, we are setting high goals and we're measuring, and we're talking about them all the time. And how can we help each other? The other thing we do that, I don't know that others do this, but we think it's pretty important, is every person in our agency knows every other person's goals. And I know for a matter of fact that they take time to look at this. And then they tell me, hey, so-and-so had this brilliant idea to help me lead on this. Or I thought, hey, the outreach coordinators could help on this, and just across the board. And the primary thing I want to share with you is if the goals are being met. We're pleased but not satisfied, which is why all the goals are higher again this year. But that the way in which these individuals are supporting each other, because they know it relates to those 7 big goals, they want to move the needle. They are at the commission because they believe in the work that's getting done. And so I'd be really remiss if I didn't share that with you. By the way, we got all kinds of nerdy numbers around our goals. If you want to dig into it with me, but Michelle probably knows all of these by heart for every person, every goal. You think I'm kidding? I'm not. By the way, that's around 180 goals within an agency, all tied principally to five big things we're trying to do. Focus is a good thing. I would also like to introduce a new team member. We have Mitch Burnell. Is Mitch here? I should make it out. Hey, Mitch, stand up here. Don't hide behind Siri. Get up here. Great, thanks, Mitch. Mitch just recently joined our team as a CP program manager. Thrilled to have him on board. He's been with us for a few weeks, and just a great addition. Funny story. I think everybody in this room, and you're a Hoosier, that the world is about this big, and I make it a practice to either sort of a soft interview / at least talk with every person who joins our team. We have interns in here. I know Joe, you can start with twice. So Mitch and I had one of those conversations. I did find out he likes to go by Mitch. Right? Only your mother calls you Mitchell, right? Yeah, when you're in trouble. When you're in trouble. I said I can relate to that. But then the world is so small. I said, you wouldn't happen to be related to a fellow I just knew for a long time. Some of you probably did too, Gordon Burnell, who was sort of a legend of Indiana history, especially in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And he said, well, yeah, he was my great uncle. And so I'm very happy. Just love how small Indiana is. Anyway, Mitch, welcome to the work. Bye. Okay. Fun stuff today. Yeah. Well, no, I don't know about that. They burn. So the next kind of fun thing I get to do is to talk
Here it is. I'm
about
back on.
is to share just a little bit of news that I know Nancy and Dan and others in our team also wanted to make sure we recognize, and I'll probably get in trouble now for embarrassing Dennis Bland. Yes, sir. Dennis was recognized recently just with a terrific award, the Recorder Media Group 2025 Awards. You may know, have read about those recently, and just a recognition of just really distinguished leaders in our state for just exemplary work that they do. And very specifically, Commission member Dennis Bland was awarded the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Award. I couldn't help but think again last night as I was looking at my notes, Dennis, that our new governor talks about 2 words a lot. And wow, this moment in time, of course, the holiday, recognizing the commemorating life of Dr. Martin Luther King was just passed. It's usually right around my birthday, so I look forward to it. But I thought how opportune that Governor Braun talks about freedom and opportunity. And that you've exemplified that understanding through your leadership of what freedom really means and what it brings you. And I also think to myself, lest any of us take that for granted, what it means for us in a free society. Now, each day they get better at it. But I mean, it is, I mean, you know how I feel about you, Dennis. It's humbling to be able to offer comments about you and then to put it in perspective of what you have done for many years at the Center for Leadership Development. And that's bring opportunity quite often to many folks who would not otherwise have had it. And I think commission members, that speaks so well to what you've committed to do in your work for the commission. So again, Dennis, I know on behalf of all of us, we're just so delighted for you and say thank you for your leadership. Nancy, I promised you I was going to be more brief this time. I have really just one more slide to cover.
Okay.
The team is over there thinking, wow, we are moving along today. Just a couple of quick things, and this is for our institutional partners especially, but also to sort of update you as commission members. Commission members, some of you are very familiar with it. Larry, who I know is on the phone today, Larry and I have talked about the Strata State Opportunity Index multiple times, and others certainly on the commission and I have talked about it. You know about it. Just a critical report that our friends at Strata Education launched last spring. This state was the first to get to see the results. We actually got a preview of them before they became public. And it focuses on 5 really critical pillars, looks at every state, doesn't rank us, but puts us into one of 4 buckets, how well we're doing. Very specifically, you may recall that Strata's assessment, and it's a very fair assessment, is that no state was really doing anything beyond sort of developmental stage around career coaching and work-based learning. However, Dr. Jenner, others in this room, this state's been working on both of those things diligently, including with diploma redesign, credentials of value, really reimagining high school, our higher ed institutions pushing on things like career coaching and work-based learning, because they also know we want more of those graduates to stay right here in Indiana. Those are part of the recipe to get them to stay. And so, you know, we're pleased. We can't be satisfied on those 2. But with all of that said, Strata heard and saw that this research was just so important to all of the states. Our team has spent a lot of time with Strata talking about the research, having them come and talk with us, giving suggestions and ideas. And they're doing a new survey, 2025 version, and they're looping in 2-year and 4-year institutions. And so we're working with institutions to help with the survey work. This is to assess how well students think these things have occurred in a variety of different ways they're measuring. So anyway, we want you as commission members to know we continue to partner very closely with Strata. The new survey is coming out. Our institution is going to be participating in that. And of course, you know, in some months, we'll have a report to share with you all and, you know, be digging through. Nominations for the faculty nominating committee are due Friday, February 7th. You can see it on screen here. I know Dr. Lockmiller has just been an incredible addition. We're going to talk a little bit more here about some other upcoming events like the AI Faculty Leadership Conference that really focused on artificial intelligence that's just coming up in a week. And so you can see the information there. Is the person to whom nominations should be made. And then lastly, you have in your packets, commission members, a set of talking points. Jeff, thank you. In this instance, I think at this table and over different times, some of you said, yeah, we could have some talking points. And we probably went overboard. So we wanted to make it more of a menu for you. Thank you. Yes, we're a team. But we wanted to sort of make it a menu for you. You hear us throw out a lot of numbers, right? You know, the 60% goal or 53% going rate, or we're ninth in the nation at completion rates now and so forth. But that is in your deck. And so ranging from, I'm just going to give you the highlight, the 60% goal You hear us talk all the time about the pipeline. You've got some bullet points there. We know you won't use all of them. You pick and choose. The economic and social metrics, those are ones that I think many of you have given a lot of attention. Certainly when we are out talking around the state, they get a lot of attention. The fact of the matter is, when someone progresses to a high school diploma, some post-high school training and education, and then to a bachelor's and higher, their lot in life just measurably, distinctly improves. That's just all there is to it. And so, the facts, folks, we see that with unemployment. I pause for a second. Our latest numbers, folks in Indiana with a bachelor's degree have an unemployment rate, most recent numbers, it's only 1.8%. That's pretty much non-existent. However, for those with less than a high school diploma, getting back to things Dr. Jenner and we and others are working on, it exceeds 10%. And then flipping the page, I think it's also important to point out that that same comparison, it was someone without a high school diploma, someone with a bachelor's degree and higher, the very big difference, more than fivefold in unemployment. And you can see things like, and we've been reporting on these for a long time, but things like, Medicaid utilization, right? I think that's a nearly sixfold difference there. So anyway, stats that you hear us talk about all the time, we just want you to have them. College going rate, certainly we talk about that quite a bit. Completions, we did a few facts. We talked about the voter agenda. Things around the outcomes-based performance funding formula. Some of you are newer to the commission. Mike Alley probably just dreams about, I'm only sort of kidding, right? The outcomes-based performance funding formula, but certainly others of you have less experience with that. Franklin Bannock grant caught a lot of attention because of the spike resulting from the federal fiasco. By the way, ongoing conversations, we really won't talk much about that today, but ways to help keep students whole with the Indiana College Core, FAFSA, pre-admissions, our data strategy, again, that Brooke really led, standing up. Research recently completed our strategic management process, or S&P, as we actually refer to it. And then especially, the good news, I think this commission has been really bold about not shying away from where our challenges are, and more so thinking of them as opportunities. But as a result of a lot of that work for many years and certain concentrations in the past couple of years, on the very last slide, there are things that commission members and all of us just need to talk about more. We need to shed a little bit of the Hoosier humility and let folks know that Indiana is eighth in the nation in need-based financial aid. And we're fifth in the nation. Dave Tucker reflecting on your comments about certification, see MJ there from Ivy Tech, and the work that's been done to lift up the sub-associate degree credential. We're fifth in the nation, folks. That's remarkable. Our institutions, I know Dr. Jenner pointed out yesterday with the Ways and Means Committee, was delighted that sixth best in the nation now, continuing for years now, of holding down tuition. My view, I'm a free markets person, and the best way to measure where the best schools in the nation are is to see where people, where they come to, where they spend their money. Eighth best in the nation. Institutions right here in Indiana. And the new number of commission members, because I think the last time we spoke with you, we were tied for 10. I think we had been 11th for a long while. Prior to that, we were 14. Not long ago, you all know we were 14th in the nation at completion rates. We are now 9th officially in the nation at completion rates. Pleased but not satisfied. And at least internally, we'll adjust this somehow in our wording over time. But frankly, the team kind of put our hands at the center. Maybe I was pushing a little bit and said, okay, our goal has been to be top 10 in those things. And we will tell you right now, our completion rate goal for 2030 has changed. And it is to be the #1 state in the nation in completion rates. At this point, we should aspire to nothing less than that. So Okay, that was a lot. I'm glad to take any questions or comments, Nancy, and just thank you all for indulging that conversation.
Questions? Commissioner?
I just have a comment. Again, I may have missed this all along, but, what struck me is that Indiana is the only state in all the United States that uses graduation retention for funding.
Yes,
Surprising.
stunning, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
That said, I think some other states may be following us.
Okay.
Because when I asked Kevin, or I asked my peers, SHIO, the State Higher Ed Executive Officers Organization, when I brought this up a couple of years ago, it's now a little more than a couple of years ago, it was, the silence was deafening, as they say. And I do know other states are talking about it, haven't pulled the trigger yet, but frankly, I hope it don't, because we have the advantage there, but yeah.
Just a question for the group. We are a little ahead of schedule. Does anyone need a quick break or should we just push through?
Yes, Mr. great.
Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, great call. Smashing Nancy. Really quickly, I also wanted to mention to you, I did go to passing, which just like to give you a few more details. Our faculty leadership conference is scheduled for next week in Bloomington on Friday, 9:45. It starts around 9 or so. Again, I think it's going to be incredible artificial intelligence focus. But Dr. Chad Lockmiller has been leading that effort and has, I know a few more meetings before we do the transition. Could you stay with us? But it's been fun watching him just really engage with our team. Again, I didn't ask for permission on this, but we talk all the time, and talk all the time. He does with our team in setting these things up, and I think that's why we're able to engage. I don't know, team, do you know what the registration is right now for next Friday, or is it full? I know I'm throwing you a curveball here, but
It's 208 right now, LLC registration. The goal is 250, and I owe Dr. Lockmiller steak dinner.
yeah, and by the way, y'all have a stretch goal. I think it was probably originally 150 or 200. Somebody pushed and said, let's bump that up. So anyhow, just want to make sure you're aware of that. And I guess break time now. Good. Yeah.
Let's take a quick break and be back by 10:35 because I want to make sure we've got time for question and answers and dialogue with Dr. Jenner. So back at 10:35 and we'll pick right back up. I myself was talking to people and didn't realize I had gone beyond 10:55. Just to keep us right on time, and again, we want to make sure we have plenty of time for. We are ready for you.
If you don't talk into the microphone, we can't hear you.
Don't you worry, Larry. Don't worry, Larry.
So,
I just
sorry
turned
about
into the
that.
microphone for you in high heels. I can't see your face right now. I'm sure you're smiling. You know, talking to the commissioner when getting coffee, I asked if he was comfortable if I share the story. I think some folks know this. Others certainly do not. Chris and I started having coffee about 10 to 12 years ago at a coffee shop in Batesville pretty often. What's that coffee shop called?
Amex Well.
Amex Well. It's still there. Little plug for Amex Well. But you could find Commissioner Lowry and I there, and we talked. I mean, both of us could talk, let's be honest. So they were long coffees. We were very caffeinated by the end of those coffees. But Chris was living in Batesville at the time. I was living in Madison. And both of us were on fire to try to do everything we could to help our part of the state, which was southeastern Indiana, not be one of the lowest educational attainment rate regions in the country. And gosh, both of us had so many stories about people who, if we had just connected with them earlier, that it would have changed their life. And then again, this went on. We had coffees for years and years. So then it ended up like, let me tell you about this person and how, you know, the blurring lines between K-12 higher ed workforce, how it helped them. And we even, you didn't give me permission to say this, but I'm going to say it. We even, at one point, 10 to 12 years ago, we're going to write a book together. And
Have the outlines.
yeah, don't open records request that. No, I'm kidding. Actually, the whole point of sharing that is, and those of you who know me, my faith is strong, everything. I know we all come in different walks of faith and, but all I can say is the good Lord works in mysterious ways. Because where we started that little coffee shop in Batesville, dreaming big about how to help southeastern Indiana, and have had the opportunity to work together, to push together, to battle together. I only look forward to that continuing, Commissioner, and so it is truly quite an honor. You know, thinking about our opportunity ahead in Indiana, we have an opportunity to build an education system where we blur the lines between K-12, higher education, and the workforce. And I want to make one thing really, really, really clear. We are going to battle those details. That is part of a healthy process of pushing. We are going to battle the details on how to push through the barriers. Almost weekly, I have a state who calls and reaches out and said, how is Indiana moving? How are you all doing this? And it's truly, I think, because we are willing to have honest conversations with each other. Number one, we're willing to not let the perfect get in the way of the good. We're willing to implement. And then we're willing to learn from what works, celebrate that, but also learn from what doesn't work and be humble enough to adjust. And so just a huge shout out to this commission, and to the many educators, K-12 and higher ed in this room, and throughout the state who are all working to make it better, for Hoosiers. And you're each in change agent roles. We're all in here in change agent roles, and we have to just keep that momentum and push to make it better, because we are absolutely on to something special. Okay, I just jumped like multiple slides right there. All right. Most of you know right now, I think everyone probably knows, the commissioner just shared, the governor had 8 cabinet secretaries. What most people might not know is the state has over 70 state agencies. And so this is the way Governor Mike Braun has selected to organize. So we are part of the education vertical, and on team education, if you will, it is the Department of Education, the State Board of Education, the Commission for Higher Ed, the Charter Board, the Education Employee Relations Board, the Indiana School for the Deaf, the Indiana School for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and the Indiana State Library. That is team education. And our goal, our shared goal is ultimately, number one, to best serve Hoosiers, to do everything we can to make, in our case, these paths of opportunity and freedom as seamless as possible for Hoosiers. This includes focusing on driving efficiencies. One such example Commissioner Lowry shared today. Across our vertical in particular.
Secretary, it'll just take 1 second.
Okay, you can tell my patience level. So I'm like, come on. So can you go to the next slide? Would you mind? Yeah, across our vertical, one thing that the commissioner and I spoke about and others have as well is, we don't need 8 chiefs of staff and 8 CFOs and 8 general counsels. And, how can we really have a more efficient vertical where we can streamline communication, really, really work together? How can we continue to focus on and really double down on increasing accountability and transparency so that we can set those key goals and keep moving the needle? So that's one of the areas that I'm beyond pumped to work with the commission on. I'm going to click and I'm going to delay. Okay, there we go. I think the delay is on this one, maybe.
Correct.
Because this one's moving and that one is still not.
There we go.
Now it is. So this is what I was mentioning earlier when Seth Henshaw's name came up. Higher ed typically runs about 10% of the budget. This current budget at the start, at 9.4%, 4.4 billion. And I know that Seth will walk through some more of the numbers. K-12 typically is right around 50%. We're right usually over the biennium, around 21, 22 billion for K-12 education. So together, team education, we are 60% of Indiana's budget. Seth is going to talk a bit more about this, but I just want to call out one of the big things that I'm watching, that I know the commissioner is and others. When you are that much of the budget, like any squeeze, any tightness, it causes challenges for us. Not only, so we're looking at the revenue forecast was less than we've seen in the past several budget years, and Seth will get into this, 3% year one, but 0.3% year two. And then the Medicaid squeeze is keeping me up at night for sure. Because that level of growth is really what is squeezing our space a bit. And I know that that's a bit out of our lane, right? The decisions that they'll make at the State House will impact that. I know we have a lot of advocates who are also for team education, but that's real and honest. Oh, and that's it. Okay. So,
I guess question or comment.
Yeah, please.
Reflection for our group is I don't think it dawned on me when you put this all together that it's 60% of the budget.
It doesn't dawn on most people, but it is, yes.
But also it makes me appreciate that this group has such a strong fiduciary commitment to taxpayers, to the students of the state. And I just want to say that I'm even now more happy that you're in this role when I know how much of the budget it is.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that, and I'm glad we have a team of people who are helping to make sure we spend 24 to 26 billion dollars to the best of our ability and call out. We've been very honest about this in K-12, and I know, Chris, you and I have talked about that across the board, but where are we getting the return on investment? Let's invest more in that. Where are we not getting the most return on investment? Okay, let's take those dollars and reallocate them. I spoke a lot to Ways and Means, and Commissioner Alley, you were there yesterday at the Ways and Means, but we talked a lot about where are we getting the return? Where can we best invest these dollars? I gave some specific examples about reading, where we've invested millions one place, millions other places. Where we're getting the return is where we're going to reallocate to keep moving the needle. Other questions, comments, thoughts? And most of you have my cell phone. I think conveniently, I think I know nearly everyone before coming on here. Jeff.
I think I'm okay without the microphone. I just wanted to say, as we sit.
Larry might want to hear your voice.
Thanks, Secretary Jenner. I just wanted to say, as we sit here and, you know, I know the Medicaid, anything with healthcare obviously is not in our lane, but I think just an overall, the general picture here as we talk about education, as it comes out of my mouth, you know, it's going to sound ridiculous because it's simple and what we are trying to do, and that is to get more people educated in our state. But an educated population, and the higher on that scale you go, the longer you live. I think that the healthcare isn't affected by a state that has a better educated populace. So I think that's something to think about in the overall scheme of things, is if we can drive down healthcare costs through having more educated populace. I think that's super important and something to always kind of think of in the back of our head. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also a big part of the conversation that we've already started having and will continue to have is, again, let's learn from what works. So we know that with the commission's help and with K-12, with our higher ed partners, we are seeing more and more students earn market-driven credentials of value while at high school. And that could, and there's a bill that I probably will be discussed later, if we can continue to improve our stackability and stackable credentials, then Indiana's ranking with some of our short-term credentials could continue to improve also when we look at hopefully, right, the associate's degree, the bachelor's degree level, et cetera. A lot of opportunity there. But I think the work that Indiana is doing, and again, blurring the line between K-12 higher ed is going to be key. Now, I could go on as well, but I'm thinking brevity in my mind out of respect for the commissioners.
Yeah, I have to tag on that too, Joe. I'm so glad you and Secretary Jenner raised that topic. You know, the refreshed talking points that we have given all of you hard copies electronic. By the way, those of you in the audience, anybody wants it, you're welcome to it. We've got reps, we're just sending it to you. We want everybody talking about these stories, right? But in that economic and social mobility, or economic and social 4x4s, and each of those, folks, that makes a point for us, right? You'll see on the social impact side of it, Medicaid is a column, staff utilization. Let me tell you, we don't have room for all the stats on there, but the way that they scale is also the same for housing assistance. It is also the same for utility assistance. Pick a data point, and it just gets better as we have attainment. And also I kind of pull on the thread, Secretary Jenner, that you referenced with return on investment. Many of you will recall that 2 years ago, when along with Secretary Jenner and others, the State House, you pushed us to push through auto enrollment for 21st century scholars. First of all, there were a lot of partners pushing for that, which is great. That's where you ought to do it, right? And it ended up being bipartisan, yay. But I'll tell you folks, at the end of the day, what sold the story was a return on investment analysis said, just on the economic side of it, wages would increase over the expected wages that an individual who would have by tenfold over the original investment in the state. Tenfold. What we didn't look at was the other half of the equation, which I'm looking at our team and saying, right, I don't know that now. What would be the expected savings, right, on the other side? Someone's not having to use public assistance, besides making more, living longer, and all those other great things, right? So the equation of return on investment, I have to underscore that, your comment, Secretary Jenner, that's, those are real outcomes that we can measurably and distinctly see as we, move these agendas forward.
And Commissioner, I'll also just add, these discussions are active with our presidents and leadership of universities. Listening to Vincennes, and I know we didn't have time for questions and they've had to head out the door. Some things that we all listen for different things, and some things I was listening for included market driven, always retention in Indiana, but also stackability of credentials and the work-based learning apprenticeships work. And so I went through, this is like for future higher ed that present, all of us have looked for, full disclosure. But I always go through and circle and like code. And this is common terminology that we're hearing right now from our presidents in higher education. And I really, really appreciate that united partnership as well. It is tough to navigate and change a massive system for the good, right? It's tough. But Indiana's set to do that and keep doing it.
So exciting. We'll get to Dennis. I think we've got a couple of our commissioners on the phone. Does anyone have a question from the phone?
No, I would like to just compliment Katie. Indiana's leading the country in education reform, and it's your vision and leadership that's doing it, Katie. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. It's teamwork. There are a lot of people who are working to get this done. You're one of them, Larry. Those late night phone calls, text messages, you get them too, Commissioner. They matter. Thank you, though.
Secretary Jenner, congratulations. And thank you for your presentation. And I know this is early and premature, but just following up on your last comment, this is obviously seems to me to be such an obvious and even transformative institutional alignment or government realignment. Yeah, I know it's premature, but just as you get into this role with this dramatic realignment, I would love to hear some immediate thoughts regarding revelations, insights, and opportunities. And then I'll just be looking to ask that same question a year from now. But revelations, immediate insights, again, from this alignment, bringing all this together, and then opportunities that you may foresee based upon this dramatic realignment. Thank you.
Thinking out loud here, which is sometimes dangerous, but let's do it. One of the big elements that I did not know how it would go is how willing, and it's not just because I'm here with Higher Ed today, I would say this to Ways and Means that they asked me yesterday too, but how willing K-12 and higher ed are willing to just tear down as many barriers as possible to work together.
I mean, they are calling us saying, can you get this out of the way? Can you get that out of the way? Gosh, what if we did this? And the reason I highlight that is, because when I talk to fellow state chiefs around the country, and Commissioner, you're probably the same way in the higher ed space, that is not common at all. And it's been quite incredible in Indiana, the synergy and the willingness and to really think through, not a defensive, like, we're not doing that. It's more of like, what if we did this? That's really where a lot of the thought has been. The other thing that I would call out is, again, I said this earlier, I think the good Lord works in mysterious ways. Maybe you saw some of the headlines that were hitting me in July. Maybe you saw those. I don't know. All of you smile and chuckle, you did, because I heard from some of you. I think that was a really meant to be moment for our state, quite frankly, because what that showed is we were able to work through something very, very tough in a public arena. In that process of diploma redesign, that first draft wasn't the draft. We had thousands, truly, might have been record setting in terms of how many people weighed in on a rule for the state of Indiana. We had thousands of people weigh in. But all of that made us better and got us to a place of consensus and agreement, but it forced the tough discussions. It forced them. So to me, that was, when I was going through it, it wasn't awesome, but it was important, and I could feel the growth moment in that time. But seeing everyone come together, that was powerful, and that shows that we can, and we're going to keep on. We ultimately all have the same mission, and that's to do everything we can to help kids or adult students, Hoosiers. And quite frankly, and I'm a little competitive, but to show our country how it's done. And Larry's right, Indiana is leading in this space. And that scares some people, by the way. I tell you, I go into some rooms, and when I say Indiana's leading in this space, it's probably some of them are like, yeah. And some of them are like, why are we leading? We shouldn't be leading. Indiana never leads. I'm not kidding you. But we're pushing through something very, very hard because, again, it matters for people. It matters for the future of our state. So I don't know that I broke them down into 3 categories. Did I leave anything out? Opportunities ahead. Thank you. I'm very excited about what is in several of the bills that we have going through the State House. Some of the bills, by the way, we could do this administratively, but when you have the executive branch and the legislative branch with us in driving change, it's really, really helpful. So I'll give you some quick examples. In the K-12 space, maybe you heard, and all of it builds, right? It's a system. We're team education. In the K-12 space, yesterday, we were ranked the highest we've ever been in 4th grade reading, 6th in the nation in 4th grade reading. That's reading to the kids at home, like all the things, right? But we're moving on reading. So there's a math bill. We have to build those foundations better. Higher ed's been saying this for a long time. So we're going to keep pushing there. By the way, respectively, we were ranked 6th in the nation in 4th grade reading, 6th in the nation in 8th grade reading, 9th in the nation in 4th grade math, and 13th in the nation in 8th grade math. That was our K-12 ranking for the country. So we've got to keep building those foundations. There's an accountability bill going through in the K-12 space, and then there's some accountability and transparency in the higher ed space. That's really, really important. We've got to set the goals, be honest with where we are to keep driving.
I am beyond pumped about the higher ed workforce development bill that Senator Good is carrying. There are some elements that we need to tweak. Let me just call it out. I met with Senator Mishler yesterday, and I swear I said it like 8 times in the room. We are going to fix that. Yeah, remember, I said it a minute ago. We're gonna fix that. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it. I know Purdue's probably in the room and others, but there's a line in there about 50%. Gosh, because we're gonna fix it, I'm trying to even remember what it says, Commissioner. It's like,
Yeah, 50% at every institution, each campus of every public institution having at least 50%. Any of residents.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and so, yeah, there's language going on. By the way, Senator Good is going to join us later this afternoon.
Oh, super.
We're going to do legislative update. This is that visit for Greg, and I'll add caller. And, but yeah, Senator Good is going to be here at some point. So
Good.
yeah, it's a great bill.
So that element, we're going to fix, but the reason why that element was so important to discuss, as you've been focused on retention, we know if it's an Indiana student going to an Indiana school, they are far more likely to stay in Indiana. I think our rate of students who come from out of state to Indiana who are leaving, what is it? 19, about 20%, versus those from Indiana who 74%. So we at least wanted to have the honest discussion. I think that there's a solution on the table that we're discussing that will be helpful, so stay tuned. But beyond that, I called that out because I always tend to put the elephant right in the middle of the room. Beyond that, though, the bill is really strong. It requires us to start building a stackable credential system so that when Hoosiers off-ramp, they don't have to restart totally again, so that we don't have multiple MOUs showing the stackability, but it's really a lot cleaner for our K-12, our higher ed, and our people. It also includes, again, the accountability element, some program analysis, and really trying to better understand of the 3,400 higher ed programs that we have in the state of Indiana. There are some phenomenal ones for sure. Let's elevate those. Every program costs money. Let's just acknowledge maybe others that may have very, very low numbers. So that transparency is key. Those are some of the elements that I'm very excited about that, and Commissioner, I'll pass it to you as well. But again, having the executive branch and the legislative branch all saying yes is really, really important to move fast. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary Jenner. Yeah, the other element, again, Senator Good is going to go into work with more depth, but I think the point you make about executive and legislative holding hands, we can do something really big. Something we've talked around these tables about now off and on for a year and a half has been credit required learning. You all made us the 8th state in the nation last March to adopt a framework. Much more detail about where we want to see credit required learning go. And Secretary Jenner and I talked about this. Our team has many folks. This state is going to lead in credit required learning, period. In honor of the work and educational experiences that adults bring to whatever that post-high school training and education looks like. This state is going to lead, and that's also just another important component of that bill. And I can't wait for Senator Good to be here to talk more about it.
Yeah, Dennis, the other thing that we've already picked up on pretty quickly is there were some areas that were duplicative across our state agencies that we were doing, that Chris and team were doing, right? So we're already seeing some of that we can improve upon. And I look forward to you asking that question a year from now. You could maybe even ask it sooner than that, quite frankly, because we're working together to, again, find the efficiencies, streamline communication, increase accountability and transparency, and make it better for Hoosiers. So it's going to be ongoing for sure. And I would say if you see something that you have a question about, or an idea, Dennis, other commissioners, others in this room, like, please ping us. That's where the ideas are coming from. Yeah, thank you.
We're gonna do a little bit of a change of order with the agenda, because we want to make sure that we can have Senator Good join Greg on the legislative update, and because we're still a smidge ahead of schedule, we're gonna ask Seth to come up and give the financial and budget updates. Normally, we stick him right after lunch when we're getting sleepy, so we won't make him come, we talk to sleepy people, we're still wide awake. Thank you, Seth.
Calling it the captain's a pretty good joke. All right, is this on? There's no amplification. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Madam Chair, members of the commission, Secretary Commissioner, thanks for having me. I do want to point out, before we get into this, I'm going to opine just for a moment because I have a microphone. But I just want to go back to the comments made earlier. First of all, thank you very much for the support of this body for the last 3 years that I spent with the commission. As seems to be the status quo for my career. I wasn't necessarily looking to exit, but when a good opportunity comes and good leadership asks you to move into another opportunity, it's hard to say no. So I will deeply, deeply miss working day to day with the commission staff, with the members of this commission, specifically with the Budget and Productivity Committee members. But I must say, I really appreciate the opportunities that I've been given in this role. And as I mentioned at the Budget and Productivity Committee meeting 2 weeks ago, and I've continued to offer my support to Commissioner Lowry, especially through this legislative session, to continue to provide updates to this body and to be as supportive as I can, especially as the commission works through this new organizational structure. Related to that, I do also want to give a huge shout out to the 3 team members who were elevated as part of this transition. And especially, I just want to brag a little bit that I think recommending Brooke Kyle be brought on to the commission a year ago, just a little over a year ago. It's one of the best professional decisions that I've ever made. And so I leave you in phenomenal hands. And yeah, just want to say that. Well, let's dive in. I have a clicker. Okay, I'll look over here because apparently that's the quick one. We've already talked a little bit about this. Secretary General shared a quick pie chart update to give you a look at really what we're talking about. I'm going to focus on the higher ed portion today because, of course, that's been the focus of this body's work. Now in my new role, I'm, of course, looking at a number of different areas as well, including the 2 schools, Indianapolis School for the Deaf and School for the Blind and Visually Impaired. And really enjoying a lot of that work. But today we'll focus on higher ed. One thing I think that's worth noting, we're going to get into the revenue forecast, get into the Medicaid forecast just a little bit. But I think to set the stage for you, 2 years ago, the state moved from a budget of approximately $38 billion, let me make sure I get my numbers right, $36 billion to $44 billion. From 18 billion a year to 22 billion a year. And so that's really the position that we're all entering this legislative session is, combining the incredible volume of federal funds that the state received with incredibly robust state revenue growth that occurred, following the pandemic and the boom that occurred. But the reality is that state government is kind of in this incredible historic position of just coming off of one of the most, we'll call it generous, appropriation periods in state history. I know we talked a lot about that specifically at higher ed 2 years ago, and we've kind of continued to talk about that since. But based on the revenue forecast in December, revenues are still doing fairly well. We're still expecting kind of more back to normal, if you will, revenue growth. We're not talking about declines in revenue or even flatlining revenue, but you're not talking about the billions and billions of dollars of new revenue that the state was dealing with January through April of 2023.
Just 1 second, Seth, sorry.
Yeah, I'll vamp.
You vamped too much at the beginning.
Yeah, I did my vamping already. Sorry, Allison. One thing I'll note, we did present the education vertical budget to the Ways and Means Committee yesterday. Commissioner Lowry, Secretary General and I. And I think one thing I do want to highlight is I feel very, very good that there's strong expectations of the education team in the Brown administration, but also a lot of trust and a lot of support that I think we can expect from the House as of yesterday, hoping to see similar outcomes from the Senate in a couple of weeks. And I believe that the state will be better for the people that are placed into these roles, maintaining that trust and support from the General Assembly as well as from the governor's office. All right, title page. Okay, so at a very high level, jumping back into the revenue forecast, and again, I really want to set the stage today. These figures are comparing to the revenue numbers specifically are comparing to the revenue forecast in April of 2023. And the reason I do that here is because that is the revenue that was on the table to be budgeted, if you will, in the last budget. So when you're looking at how much new state ongoing revenue is expected this budget cycle versus last budget cycle, you're looking at about $760 million in year one, and then nearly flat, another another 70 or so million dollars in year two. Again, these are both compared to that 23 expectation for fiscal 25. And so that's also somewhat abnormal. Traditionally, what you would expect revenues to see in a forecast is, say, plus 2% in year one and plus another 2% in year two. And so that is kind of built into the culture of budgeting, right? Where you see specifically more investment made in that second year. So this relatively flat revenue growth in the second year of the budget also creates some unique challenges in a budget model, right? Where you may see investment in year one, but it will be significantly more challenging than the previous biennium, regardless of revenue levels, to see a similar compounding investment in year two. And you'll kind of see that throughout the governor's recommended budget. And frankly, you'll probably see something similar in the next iterative steps of the budget until the April revenue forecast updates. Medicaid specifically, obviously there's been a lot of headlines about this. I want to start by saying I am no Medicaid expert. I spent a brief period of my career working in the health and human services space and state finance, but that's been long enough now that I won't wade too far into those waters. But I think it's really important to know, in aggregate, what we're really looking at is Medicaid expenditures, which the governor's budget fully funds and he's maintained his commitment to fully funding that, completely absorbing any and all new state revenue growth. That's really the headline. We have relatively good revenue growth. $700 and $800 million of new state revenue is not a bad figure. The challenge is that it's completely absorbed by anticipated expenditure increases in the Medicaid program. And that's really what's driving a lot of the conversation in the State House, what's driving conversations by the budget agency and the governor's office. And I'm sure all the secretaries' offices and agencies is that recognition that, yes, the state is in a relatively fiscally healthy position, strong reserves, prudent fiscal management. The challenge is Medicaid expenditures are absorbing any new funding opportunities that would otherwise exist. So let's jump over now and talk through at a very high level what's included in the governor's recommended budget for higher education. Secretary Jenner spoke earlier a little bit about this. The governor actually just last night in his state address spoke a little bit about these priorities, including things like teacher pay, public safety, school safety, a lot of local government finance issues related to property tax and things of that sort. But let's zero in on higher education. You may have heard that among a number of cost-saving initiatives that the governor has proposed are administrative kind of cost savings opportunities across all of state government, which equate to about 5% on average for most administrative line items in state government. So specifically what we're talking about here is operating dollars, not programmatic dollars, but operating dollars for the institutions. I can say with extreme confidence, having worked very closely with Commissioner Lowry in preparing for this, that the commission is in a very strong place and a good place to manage through these cost reductions that are being proposed in the budget bill. And frankly, I think the commission is probably a little bit ahead of the curve as far as being prepared and able to kind of manage through that. Commissioner.
I'll add a call for you, commission members. The commission took steps to meet guidelines to achieve these cost savings on the first day the governor's in office. So it was our intent to move quickly because this is a necessity to free up funding for priorities have been set forth. So Seth, thank you, and thanks for your help in helping achieve that. A team effort amongst many people, but I just wanted you all to know that was done immediately.
Thank you, Commissioner. The commission also included in its budget recommendation an increase for the CBO program. The CBO program, among a number of other things, provides reimbursement to our public and private institutions for fee remission, tuition remission they provide to children of disabled veterans, to children of public safety professionals, et cetera. That is an interesting program because students have to self-identify, and there's an application process through that program. It's not some sort of click the button and automatically apply to anyone, mostly because we don't always know. The institutions don't always know who these students are. But they've been doing a much better job at helping students self-identify, making students aware of that opportunity. So the program has grown fairly consistently over the last several years. The governor's recommended budget includes a consistent flat appropriation to what was appropriated in fiscal 25 for that program. To be very clear, that does not mean that those students won't receive that benefit. Statute is very clear that it is a tuition remission. They will not be charged tuition once they're identified and their application is approved. But it does mean that the total dollars requested by the public and private institutions to reimburse them for that cost may not be available if the program even stays flat at its fiscal 25 level or grows. And so we've been in very close communication with the financial aid community. We have very good relationships there, and we'll continue to keep them updated. But we'll have updates for the commission as we move forward through the budget process and what the implementation of that looks like. Additionally, the governor's recommended budget does call for a number across the state of very targeted and specific line item reductions and eliminations. The governor, I think, announced over $700 million in reductions throughout the budget. He's kind of put those into two buckets, right? The majority of that is in very targeted line item elimination or reduction, programmatic specifically, looking for efficiencies, looking for better outcomes from spending the same dollars elsewhere, as well as those administrative reductions that we talked about, which accumulates to about $90 million a year. The one impact for the commission is the STEM teacher recruitment program. The STEM teacher recruitment program, I think, has been around for about a decade now. It's $5 million a year. It is granted to a number of entities, including university partners and other nonprofits, with the goal, the stated goal of supporting the recruitment and preparation for students to eventually go into a career in the STEM teaching profession. And there's a number of other initiatives kind of at play in a similar space. There's a number of other works, the Department of Education does work in this area. And so that line item was not included in the governor's recommended budget. Again, that's a grant program, not a student financial aid program. So there was no negative impact to student financial aid.
And if I may, that was an example, Dennis, to your earlier question of a potential duplication, right? We do have efforts to recruit STEM teachers within the department. Again, none of this is fun, you all taking out your red pen. If we talked about the Department of Education, we'd be here a lot longer than Seth is gonna be on one time. That was why Ways and Means was twice as long as it was supposed to be yesterday. But I did want to flag, we take STEM teacher recruitment very, very seriously. We're just trying to look anywhere in the couch cushions to see what we can do when we're in this situation. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, absolutely. University operating was held at the fiscal 25 appropriation level. However, importantly, the governor's recommended budget did not include the base building outcomes-based performance funding monies that were earned in fiscal 2025. That is something that Secretary Jenner, Commissioner Lowry, and I have kind of raised up the flagpole, and we're working with both the governor's office, budget agency, and legislative leaders to ensure it's made very clear that the governor, Secretary Jenner, Commissioner Lowry strongly are committed to performance funding for higher education, just like they're strongly committed to performance funding at an agency level. We're hearing a lot of that there. And I think frankly, I think there was some amount of intention, right, to hold that flat. And so as we've worked through kind of educating some key team members on specifically how the funding formula works, because as a reminder, the funding formula, the way it shows in the budget bill was brand new in the 2023 budget. Historically, it had been done differently. And so working through that, we're hoping that we can work through this. And again, something you'll hear many people state in the coming weeks, right, is the budget is an iterative process. And we remain committed to performance funding, both at the Secretary's office. I know Commissioner Lowry and the Commission remain very committed to performance funding. And I know the administration does also continue to work through what that exactly looks like through the budget process.
And I would just emphasize, the governor's office has doubled down on this. We flagged that already for House and Senate leadership. It's very important, the work you've done, and we'll continue to advocate for that, even in an incredibly tight budget. It matters.
Dual credit. So the commission for the last decade has recommended $50 per credit hour for technical and high priority dual credit courses. And technical and high priority dual credit is a list that's managed and owned by the commission. It is not all dual credit. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's much more focused than that. But the commission has made that recommendation for many years. General Assembly, while there has been a little bit of movement over time, usually based off of financial health state and the availability of dollars, has tried to, as best as it can, maintain that $50 per credit hour recommendation. The governor's recommended budget held line items flat to fiscal 25 levels. So the total spend still remains around $30 million. Importantly, another item that education leadership has flagged for the governor's office and the legislature is that holding line items flat doesn't really take into account the different work that's being done across our institutional partners and really more than 7 institutions. So take, for example, I think it's Purdue Northwest saw a 10% growth in the dual credit funding, the dual credit hours that they provided students from last biennia to this biennia, whereas Ivy Tech provided 30% more dual credit hours between last biennia and this biennia. Well, holding those line item appropriations flat effectively creates a significant swing in the dollar per credit hour that we're providing to those institutions. And so we're going to be working to, at whatever the total funding level is, create some sort of per credit hour parity amongst the institutions. Right now, that would look around $42 per credit hour, something like that. But I do want to note that we're continuing to work with the institutions and the legislature, governor's office to make sure that we fit, to make sure that we fit within what the budget allows for, but we do that as equitably and effectively as possible with our institutional partners, who again, as a recollection, this is based off of the 22-23 academic year data that these funding recommendations are based on. So these are credit hours already provided, students already educated, really a year in arrears, and by the time they see the funding, 2 and 3 years in arrears. So we're continuing to work on that. The governor's recommended budget did not include.
I know you're working on it. Will that be effective July 1st? I mean, you're working on it right now until in the new term in the fall.
Exactly. So the funding that we're talking about now will begin July 1 of this current year. That'll be the beginning of fiscal 26 and continues for the next 2 years through fiscal 27 or June 30th of 2027. R&R was not included in the governor's recommended budget. R&R is kind of an interesting creature in that it is obviously utilized by institutions for capital purposes, but it is included as an above the line, if you will, in the state surplus statement as kind of an ongoing cost, if you will, there. And so again, we're continuing to communicate with the administration, continue to communicate with their institutional partners, House and Senate to kind of work through that, but that was not included in the governor's recommended budget. And then par for the course, and I think it's worth reminding the commission members, the governor also did not include any new capital funding for institutional capital projects in his recommended budget. And I would just like to note that's par for the course. The governor has rarely, if ever, included university capital in their recommended version of the budget bill. And so I think it is worth noting that you know, at a very high level, this is kind of how this is always operated. The budget is a very iterative creature. We are working through unique times because of the pinch being created by the Medicaid program at a time when revenues are fairly strong and stable. And so there's a lot of uniqueness to what we're going through right now. And I just keep coming back to, you know, you go from where we were in the 21 budget to where that April forecast came out and $2 billion of new revenue was announced. The 23 legislative session and budget where several $1 billion of new revenue was known for the whole of session, to where we are today, where there's still strong revenues, but those Medicaid expenditure post-COVID policy adjustments and all of that is really, for lack of better terms, eating the lunch of the state budget. And so we are committed to continuing to work through this process. You know, I think Secretary Jenner said yesterday, you know, the budget is until sine die, it's written in pencil, not concrete. And so we'll continue to partner with all the necessary parties to get to the finish line in as strong a place as we can for education.
You said great explanation on all of that. Well done. Reference to all commission members. When BPC adopted its recommendation in October, you adopted your recommendation in November. Something that you uniquely did that was really beneficial to us, especially as we look at the new revenue and expense forecast, Medicaid being so high, is we prioritized. And that has been I can't tell you how important that has been to us at the highest level. You said operating funding first. Second, we literally numbered them. Second, seven talked about those, R&R, dual credit. Third being capital, and then fourth being increase to the formula around R&R. I say that to you because it's especially significant for us as we work together with Dr. Jenner and legislative leaders, governor's office and so forth. You help to give us a roadmap on where your priorities are. Again, when you took your work, when you completed your work on the recommendation back in November, we didn't have the forecast right. And certainly the governor, trying to think of the governor, didn't yet been formally elected, but, hadn't certainly set his priorities and so forth. But just that prioritization, I'm going to do the right thought of doing it, probably set. Anyway, it has served us well, so thank you for doing it.
Yeah. Can I ask one question? On the CBO program, if that fund is expired or fully spent down, then who's responsible for the costs associated with that program?
Yeah, great question. So the institutions themselves are responsible for providing the tuition remission to the students. They then seek reimbursement from the state for that dollar amount. We're working through right now what it looks like if we exceed. In 2024, we were on track to exceed that appropriation. And I should also note that fund has had a carry forward balance in it for several years because it had additionally underspent the appropriation. But in the last 2 years, our institutions have done a very, very good job helping identify students who are eligible for that award, apply for it. And so the in cost has been increasing. But to answer your question, the institutions are required to provide that tuition remission, regardless if the reimbursement level is sufficient to fully pay for that cost. And then I would really quickly, if I could wrap, I apologize. Lastly, I just want to note, you'll continue to get updates. And again, I've committed to Commissioner Lowry to supporting through this process. The House's budget will release sometime in mid-February. I've kind of noted the specific technical deadlines in here. Usually those budgets come out a few days before those deadlines. And so mid-February, here in just a few weeks, we should have a strong idea of the priorities of the House. And then early to mid-April, we should have a strong idea of the priorities of the Senate. And then towards the end of April is when the magic happens in conference committee and the three players, if you will, the House, Senate, and executive branch will come together and kind of negotiate that landing place. There will also be, I did put it on here, an updated Medicaid and revenue forecast in April. And so there will also know that. And so I think it's just worth noting, going back to the pencil, not in stone. The April revenue forecast has historically been, it's always some amount of a game changer. And there's always groups and interests who are waiting for that forecast and kind of keeping their fingers crossed that something wonderful is going to happen. That doesn't always occur. But, you know, hopefully revenues remain strong. You know, God willing, Medicaid expenditures, will come down. I know the administration's working really hard, to find efficiencies where they can, but we'll continue to keep you updated throughout the process.
First of all, as I think about your new role and I look at this vertical, first thought that comes to mind for me is sincerely how envious I am of you and your role. Like, I'm not sure. Thank you. I don't know if you ever set out on your career journey, even in that world of education, where you said, I'm going to have an opportunity to work in a space that will also include school for the deaf or the deaf and the blind. That's really deep. So again, kudos. The question to use the question I asked to Dr. Jenner. Again, it's early, but any revelations, any insights, any opportunities? Thank you.
Yeah, happy to answer. Thank you very much, Dennis, and I appreciate your words. Also, maybe if you would like to trade, we can have that conversation as well. You know, I think there's a number of opportunities. Something, you know, from what I would call the small stuff, like, you know, identifying the haves and have-nots within state government, right, where the secretaries are going to break down the walls and silos that artificially exist there because there's a different business unit. PeopleSoft terminology, don't need to worry about. To try and provide, you know, reasonable similarities and experiences for state employees and the Hoosiers they serve. I think there's a ton of opportunity there. Specifically, the two schools, I've had the opportunity to meet with the finance team and some other leadership with both the schools. And there is so much opportunity there. Something a lot of people don't know is both of the schools serve more than just the students who are residentially located on their campuses. And I mean, you know, the beauty of education in Indiana is that the parents of the children who may qualify to attend those schools, either locally or residentially, still have to make that choice. It's still their choice on if they want them to be educated locally at a local school corporation, commute once, every day back and forth. There's a number of students who do that, or the tens or, you know, many students who are bussed in on Monday to start class and are bussed home on Friday to rejoin their families for the weekend. So the responsibility of both helping them both identify efficiencies, supporting them both through the challenges every organization has, while also making sure that we maximize services for the students they serve, weighs heavily on me. Something that you may know, and others may or may not know, is the state is currently investing a substantial sum of money into a consolidated campus, a physical location for both schools at the location that's currently the school for the blind and visually impaired. And I think what's really exciting about that is, just like we hear at our college campuses, right? Beautiful buildings attract people. And I have no doubt those schools are looking forward to, I think 2029 is when they're expecting to open those doors, that when they bring a family for a visit, that they will feel so much better about leaving their students there, either for the day or for the week. And I genuinely believe 10 years from now, we're going to see better educational outcomes from the intensity of services those two schools can provide, through economies of scale, through the specialization that really, you know, are hard to find in other places in the state in the density that those two schools provide. So I would say absolutely excited to be a part of the team, but I also recognize finance is my role, which means I'm not always going to be everyone's favorite person, and looking forward to working through that as well.
Thank you very much. A quick follow-up, and then can you talk then about some examples of some of those economies of scale?
Yeah,
So the
absolutely.
question for those who maybe didn't hear the microphone, it's a question about economies of scale.
Yeah. I'll steal a little bit from Secretary Lisa Hirschman, who is responsible for the Office of Management and Budget and all the agencies within that vertical. I think, again, one of the beauties of these verticals is that not just within the vertical itself, but within all the verticals, there's an approach being taken. I mentioned kind of the haves and have-nots. Something Lisa has talked about is fleet services, which I know doesn't necessarily impact the commission. But the state owns a lot of cars, and there could be huge variances in the vehicles, in the usage, in the quality and the number that NDOT needs and has versus the Department of Natural Resources versus state police versus Department of Corrections. And so taking a holistic view of that, I believe, is where we're going to find those efficiencies. One thing that I've heard her mention specifically is you may have a agency over here whose average mileage for their vehicles is 5,000 a year, and an agency over here whose average utilization of vehicles is 30,000 miles a year, right? There's an efficiency that can be found there. So that's just one example, but I'm really excited to partner with Secretary Jenner and all the agencies, obviously Commissioner Lowry and this agency, to identify ways that we can try and make sure that we're removing walls and barriers where they don't need to exist. And just to be frank, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to take time to get through all of this. But I'm very excited that the governor and the administration has taken a very keen interest in efficiency. Something I've shared with the fiscal leaders and all the agencies that are within the education vertical is this is our time to shine. When the administration has strong and high expectations and leadership has strong and high expectations about efficiency, that's when fiscal leaders really get to step up and not just pay the bills, but lead. And so that's my expectation, fiscal leaders and all the agencies within the education vertical, and I believe Secretary Jenner's expectation of me.
All right, while we have Seth, we do have 3 capital projects that need the vote and the discussion. We'll get clear discussion. So, Mike, you're the head of the BCC. Do you want to?
I just say, yes, we do have 3 capital projects. We met on January 21st and reviewed those, and the Budget Committee brings those forward. We felt they were worthy of consideration, so we do want to bring them forward. And I know first we've got one from Indiana University in the medical school. So we'll go ahead and.
Thank you, Mike, members of the commission, Secretary Jenner, Commissioner Lowry. IU is here asking your approval for the build out of basements at the IU School of Medicine, Medical Education and Research Building, which if you're driving downtown, the new 10-story building next to the new hospital complex is coming along very nicely, as well as the IU School of Medicine Van Nuys Medical Science Building, which is located on the IU Indianapolis campus. The total of this project is estimated at $20.5 million and will be funded by the IU School of Medicine funds and gifts, so primarily research and philanthropic dollars. The basement build-out project of approximately 24,500 square feet will create additional laboratory space needed to accommodate the growth of research programs and house laboratories and administrative offices for research cores. The Medical Education and Research Building is primarily used for academic instruction, and this project will house an innovative educational lab space for the Department of Neurosurgery and the otolaryngology department as well to support their skull-based programs, and would create a destination program for IU School of Medicine trainees due to the proximity of educational spaces to one another and the location within the building. The hub for research cores in the Van Nuys Medical Science Building will include cores supporting musculoskeletal health and basic science courses. Research support space will accommodate the growing number of researchers housed in the facility, and the freezer farm would add an additional 45 freezers. We ask for your support.
Very good. Thank you very much. And now let's have recommendations from staff.
Thank you, members of the commission. First of all, I would just like to note that Dr. Borson looks a little different today. But Zach, thank you for being here and presenting. I would also note, if you may recall, I believe it was a year ago, the commission reviewed a capital project for a additional floor space, similar conversation, right? Where they're building space for future build out of that space, as opposed to kind of doing it all at once as they better identify the needs. And again, this is on that new campus that's causing wonderful construction and wonderful traffic problems all downtown. But I'm not there anyways. With that being said, staff does recommend approval of this project.
Consider the motion.
So I'd make a motion for approval.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Very good. Next is Purdue University Northwest, and a new residence hall.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kendra Leatherman, Director of Government Relations for Purdue University. First project I'd like to request approval for is to build a new residence hall on the Purdue Northwest campus. It's going to be a 42,000 square foot residence hall with 150 beds, geared primarily toward freshmen and lower division students. Estimated total cost is $29 million. Funded by non-fee replaced debt, auxiliary housing and dining fund. On the financing side, we're doing a combination of issuing new revenue bonds, refinancing older bonds to increase capacity, and using $9 million of reserve to help facilitate that process. At our Purdue Northwest campus, we've had a waiting list for housing every year since 2022. And we have also had an increase in 1,700 new undergrads for fall 2024. Our total enrollment is up 4.3% from the previous year, and so we anticipate this will help bring down the wait list if should this project move forward. If the project is approved, we would start construction in October through December of this year.
Great. Thank you very much. And I'm just saying, as we reviewed this at Budget Committee, we were very focused on the impact on enrollment and what that would have both in terms of what the current housing capacity is and the positive impact this will have and also on enrollment. So with that, Zach Seth, would you like to share staff comments?
I would love for Zach to share IU staff comments.
Yeah, I bet Zach's got some ideas.
I don't know that Kendra would love that so much. Really quickly, I'm not sure, but I don't know that we've actually introduced Kendra Leatherman to the full commission before. So I just want to welcome Kendra to, I think, her first commission meeting. Am I right? Okay, well, I told her I would just embarrass her a little bit. Kendra and I worked together for many years. She joins Purdue from the NESC Board of Accounts, where she was counsel for the general counsel, and altogether, super helpful colleague for many years to me in my role with the commission. So thrilled for Purdue to have her. The only thing I just want to note regarding the project itself is I think it's just the commission has had really good conversations in the past about rate setting, about room and board costs and things like that. But I think the pent up demand for student housing really spoke for itself in the project when staff was reviewing it. And so understanding that there is that unmet demand and also understanding the investment that's happening at Purdue Northwest, staff does recommend approval of this project.
All right, great. And with that, I'd make a motion for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then the third is a renewing a lease for Purdue Indianapolis. And Kendra, you want to share that again?
I'm going to do this up and down thing a few times. Thank you, everyone. The next project that we're looking for approval today is for a lease regarding our Luxon Capital lease. I'm going to explain it a little bit because it's a little convoluted. Currently, we have a lease for the apartment complex on Luxon Capital. We're requesting to not only extend the term of the lease, but expand the scope of it. And so should the project be approved, it'll be a 3-year lease term total through the end of the 26-27 academic year. The entire apartment complex will allow us to have 196 apartments that have 672 beds for student housing. If the lease is approved, we will kind of maintain control of the entire building, which is a positive for us in maintaining security and safety for our students. The source of funding is from auxiliary funds, housing and dining.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kendra. Questions? Yeah, Nancy.
This is the one that was mentioned prior.
Just keep it up there, buddy.
So just to correct, this was mentioned prior to us, and I just wanted this is a facility that has, the retail on the bottom. And so you said you would maintain full control of the building, but you're not responsible for the lease and you'll continue to have a office, retail managers separate. Is that what, will you be managing that also?
That's a very good question. I got some clarification from our team on that. The first floor retail space is actually shell space at the moment. It's not built out or anything, and there's no actual retail in there. At the moment, we're not intending to build that out, because it's only a 3-year lease. It requires substantial investment for us. And at the moment, we don't really see the return on that. But, you know, it all kind of depends on what enrollment at the Purdue, Indianapolis campus is and how we kind of move forward with the housing in our master plan.
Okay, thank you, Kim. Other questions? Staff recommend Seth?
Thank you, Mike, and members of the commission. Following the review that the Budget and Productivity Committee had, and a good conversation, Commissioner Cabello, you engaged actually 2 weeks ago and the follow-up conversation with staff, commission staff does recommend approval of this project.
Have a motion?
I'd make a motion for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, good passes.
And that concludes the budget committee.
Very good. So we are just a smidge behind where we wanted to be at this point, but we got some really important business that can take care of, which will help overall. But I think at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Lowry for a couple of very important recommendations.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, this is one of those things that's just fun, right? We spend so many evenings going, okay, bring the rest tonight. The big topics we have to do. We get to honor a couple of folks today. I think Tom Saunders could not be with us. Many of you know, Tom served on the commission for a couple of years, great contributor to that. And we have a very brief resolution. I read, and then I assume you'll ask for a motion and a vote on that. Whereas Tom Saunders served with distinction on the Indiana Commission for Higher Education since July 2022 as an at-large member. And whereas Tom's service on the commission serves back as a bookend to his distinguished career as a public servant, whereas he brought over 25 years of experience to the commission from his time as an Indiana state representative, providing unique insight into the role legislation plays in increasing post-secondary attainment, whereas Tom understood the relationship between education attainment and economic and social mobility and prosperity, seeking to increase opportunities for all Hoosiers, and whereas he shared his captivating experiences with significant public figures from all backgrounds, as well as a vast collection of political memorabilia with fellow members of the commission. Now therefore be it resolved that the Indiana Commission for Higher Education expresses its deep appreciation to Tom Saunders for his service to the state on behalf of the grateful Indiana higher education system, and wishes him every success in his future endeavors and his.
It's probably a non-controversial resolution that we can all get behind. But before we take the vote, does anyone have any comments or? Okay, may I have a motion? Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. Well, it's wonderful to honor Tom in that way. He really was a valuable member of this group and so valuable to the state overall. And I think that now we get to talk about someone whose value, I'm not sure you could even calculate. I'm an accountant, but my brain can't even imagine the number of people's lives who were improved because of Dr. Sauer. And I don't want to get mushy. So I did also want to pass along, Dan Peterson really wanted to be here for this. He has such deep respect for you, Dr. Sauer. And he really wanted to say that you have been such an incredible contributor for 4+ decades to the state and to educating Hoosiers. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Dennis Bland, who is going to read a resolution for Dr. Sauer.
Thank you.
Please do. Yes, we want to embarrass you.
You're doing a good job.
Before I read the resolution, they sound corny, but I'll be sincere. Never got the Phi Beta Kappa Award. No Nobel Prize winner. But my regard for Dr. Sauer is so high, this is one of the greatest honors I can have. Being able to be asked to read this resolution. It's a privilege. So a resolution honoring Dr. Ken Sauer. Whereas Dr. Ken Sauer dedicated nearly 4 decades of the state, or to the state of Indiana and the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, bringing an unwavering commitment to academic excellence and increasing opportunities for educational attainment for all Hoosiers. And whereas Dr. Ken, during Ken's tenure, which spanned 7 governorships, he led the Commissioner's Academic Affairs and Quality Committee, where he oversaw the review and approval of thousands of degree programs and many strategic initiatives, such as the creation of Indiana's comprehensive community college system through legislative action. And whereas Dr. Sauer coordinated commission activities for the statutory infrastructure of Indiana's credit transfer system, positioning Indiana as a national leader in transfer. And whereas he developed the statewide transfer and articulation committee, the 88-course core transfer library, the Indiana College Core, and the 23 transfer single articulation pathways, or TSAPs, not to mention exam course equivalency for AP, CLEP, IB, and the Cambridge International. And whereas he harnessed technological innovation to advance higher education in the 21st century, such as e-transcripts, the Indiana Credential Registry, and the Transfer In and My College Core websites. And whereas he helped launch the nationally transformative effort, the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement, or SARA, which Indiana was the first to join and still relies upon today. And whereas Dr. Sauer maintained active involvement and held leadership positions with many key organizations inside and outside of Indiana, such as VTech, Indiana's Board for Proprietary Education, HLC, NC SARA, MSARA, and SHIA. And whereas prior to joining the commission, Dr. Sauer worked for the National Center for Higher Education Management Systems, where he provided leadership on a federal contract to produce the classification of instructional programs, or CIP codes, which the center still uses annually for collecting data from all U.S. colleges and universities. Now therefore be it resolved that the Indiana Commission for Higher Education expresses its deep appreciation and gratitude to Dr. Ken Sauer for his leadership, thoughtfulness, and guidance as he concludes his long and distinguished career in public service, and we wish him well and Godspeed in this next chapter of his life.
I will speak to call for the motion.
Motion for approval. Aye.
Well, they better not be. The resolution passes. Thank you, Dr. Sauer, for everything.
Thank you very much, members of the commission, everyone really, for this resolution. It's a very humbling and touching, and be assured it means an awful lot to me. So thank you once again. So what do you say after 40 years? Chris, you said I had about an hour, right?
I'll keep it to 3 points. The first point really relates to the work of the commission. And based on the obvious dedication that each member of the commission brings to commission deliberations, I think you already know how important your work is. But, you know, from time to time, it's nice to be reminded of that. The decisions and recommendations you make, the policies you pass, do affect student lives and gives them opportunities that they might not otherwise have. Now, you may not have the kind of direct feedback from students that, let's say, Chad has when he mentors students in his programs. But be assured that you do make a difference to individual students. And it's been my privilege to work with you and previous commission members, and in some cases for many years. And I know Judd and Dennis, I think you're the longest serving commission member, and Dan, but for all of you, it's been a privilege to work with you. And Dennis, I so treasure the conversations we had in advance of AAQ committee meetings. So thank you all. My second point relates to the many outstanding staff colleagues here at the commission with whom I have had the privilege of working. And I'm delighted to hear my old boss, Teresa Lovers, is here. And certainly she's my And I would be remiss if I didn't especially mention colleagues in the academic affairs team in my work, Ross Miller, Terry Lambert, Jessica Barrett, Don Clark, Jillian Shelton, Katisha Coates, more recently, Rachel Martin. And it's just been terrific to work with them. And by the way, I should also mention as an honorary member of the academic affairs team, and here I'm referring to my wife, Neelin, with 55 years of encouragement and support, anything that I've accomplished, she deserves credit for that as well. And my third and final point relates to partners, more specifically to institutional partners, but there are so many partners in other state agencies, for example, and philanthropic organizations. And to return to something I alluded to earlier, that we can do some great work at the state level, but ultimately it's the institutions, the faculty, the academic leaders, registrars, admissions officers, counselors, institutional researchers, facilities managers, all of those people who ultimately will make the difference in student lives. And this commission institutional partnership is so critical. If I could just use one little example here. I work closely with then State Senator Jim Banks on the legislation that he authored that created the Indiana College Corps. And it was critical in that legislation that it said that the ICC had to be based on competencies. And by the way, there's a direct line between that and another kind of partnership that the commission had as a result of a grant from Lumina Foundation to do some work on the tuning project, which focused on a European project that focused on competencies. So let's not forget our philanthropic partners as well. But to return to the legislation, the Indiana College Corps, it was really my job to bring academic officers together to identify what turned out to be the 6 competency areas, and then in turn to convene faculty panels that created the more detailed competencies. And the important thing is that it was the institutional expertise, the academic leadership, the faculty leadership that really resulted in the specific set of competencies. And that's why these partnerships with the institutions are so important. And it's so to my talented institutional partners, thank you for all that you do. And it has been a privilege to work with you as well. And I did keep it under an hour, Chris. Thank you.
kid when I was saying it was an honor to be asked to read the resolution. If you spend any time looking at the news, reading the newspaper, you quickly get a sense of how low humanity can sink. The myriad examples of humanity that are worse. And that privilege to come to the Commission for Higher Education for over 20 years. And then I have a chance to meet a man that actually sets a gold standard for humanity on the best. The grace, the keen intellect, the insight, the passion, the caring. This guy is the real deal. So it's such an honor. Thank you.
Well, and now I have an honor to call Tony Hahn back up to, tell us where to go for lunch.
Thank you.
Reel it back in. Alrighty, well, one of our business friends are in here, but yummy lunch, that was really good. We switched the agenda around just a little bit, and we did learn that Senator Good is not going to be able to join us today. So with that, we're going to move right into the legislative update with Greg Carroll. Well, I should have gaveled it, so I was ready. Here you go. I think we're good. All I have to do is just introduce Greg Harrell, the Assistant Commissioner for Public Policy and Strategic Development.
Thank you. And I'm going to say a quick word about Greg. Commission members, you may or may not realize that in recent months, Greg has stepped up to Assistant Commissioner and is leading our public policy and legislative work, and ably so, I might add, very ably so. And so, Greg, thank you for doing this. Yes, Senator Good and I were just texting. They're going into session at 1:30, and so there's just no possible way you can make that. I think I'm probably going to invite him though to come back in March, right? Because as with Senate Bill 448 that Greg's going to talk about, and all the other legislation, I would put the asterisk on this right now. We're going to tell you what they look like today. Bear in mind what Seth said about the schedule. We've got 13 weeks and since yesterday, is it Katie? Probably got like 13 weeks of session ahead of us. So we'll tell you where things are today. We know they'll all work over time. We'll be vigilant about that. But I just, especially want to recognize Greg for leadership he is showing, and that we'll work on getting Senator Good here with us maybe in March.
Well, and congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission, and Commissioner Lowry. Madam Chair Jordan, thank you for those comments. Here to speak about the 2025 legislative preview. And for those commission members who have served with us for some years, we'll call Josh Garrison and I doing this in tandem during past years. And so for new commission members, we are going to discuss 4 different items today. So we'll lead off just talking more generally about the legislative session, which is a budget year, as Seth Henshaw mentioned earlier, some timelines. Third, we'll talk about Senate Bill 448. Would have been great to have Senator Good here, although he had a conflict. So I'm happy to discuss that bill, which is a priority bill for Governor Braun, his administration, the Office of Education Secretary Jenner, as well as us at the Commission for Higher Education. And then finally, I will discuss about 6 bills which would impact our work and operations of the Commission for Higher Education. As Commissioner Lowry indicated, things are moving really quickly at the General Assembly, and they will continue to do so up to the point at which the legislature adjourns, which must be no later than April 29th during signing days. So we'll continue to keep you apprised of that, but wanted to give you just a preview snapshot of where things are today.
And Greg, you might give them an idea of how many bills you're just watching. We are, again, that's a euphemism for Greg. And Greg is really watching and feeding information to the rest of us on.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Lowry. You're a step ahead of me. I actually have that here. I think maybe if not the next slide, the following one. So we're happy to share that. Thank you. All right, so diving in, as I said, we'll start with timeline. The General Assembly ceremoniously started November 19th with Organization Day and reconvened this month on January 8th. A couple more items to be aware of as bills are making their way through first chamber. The third reading deadline is February 20th for both the Senate and the House. So I talked about the kind of break in session between first and second chamber. Second half of session begins March 3rd. And then finally, as I indicated just a moment ago, statutorily, the legislature must adjourn no later than April 29th. So back to Commissioner Lowry's point, there are, as you know, in all years, many bills that are filed. We're overall about 1,200 across the board. We ourselves are tracking just slightly fewer than 200 bills, 181 to be exact, that are centered on higher education, K-12, and the workforce. And want to point out that while that sheer number seems daunting, not all of the bills that are education or workforce related will ultimately even receive a hearing. And while I am leading education, higher education legislative efforts at the commission, as Secretary Jenner noted in her presentation, we are working in close coordination with her team, and they've been wonderful to work with. So to have that partnership with David Buzzy, Molly Collins, Sarah Benitez at the department, we've really been able to work together strongly and further our efforts. Next, talking about just the governor's agenda bills, there are a series of those, and I won't go through them all. Most of them are a priority of Secretary Jenner and the Department of Education. However, we do have a shared focus on Senate Bill 448, which is the commission's agency bill. And so the next few slides, I'll discuss the bill. It's got 4 different components. And Commissioner Lowry, Secretary Jenner, please, as I'm going through, feel free to add comments as well. The bill, you know, when you look at what it seeks to do, are a couple different things. You know, we're raising academic standards, and I'll talk about that here in just a moment with the degree approval and review process that we all administer at the Commission for Higher Education, really maximizing the effectiveness of that process. As always, we're laser focused on increasing education and training beyond high school. And then finally, we are again, very focused on addressing workforce challenges and shortages here in the state of Indiana. And we think that this bill can address those topics in key ways. So first, the biggest priority really of the commission is refreshing the degree program approval and review process. We think there's a lot of opportunity there. And as you all aware, we at the commission approve or disapprove existing programs or those that are proposed to existence. Overall, we have about 3,000 academic programs that currently exist. And that is just talking public institutions alone. There are even more, about double that, when you start looking into different bachelor's degrees, associate degrees, et cetera, with our private institutions. So I do want to say our institutions are doing really great work in preparing future students for workforce success beyond getting their degrees or credentials. But that number has, you know, kind of continued to climb over the years, and I'll be frank, we think that needs to be addressed. There, you know, with 3,000 options in our public institutions alone, we think there's some pretty good opportunity to make that process more efficient and effective, not just for our students, but for our state and future taxpayers.
Yeah, and I have to rip on this one a little bit too. Greg, thank you. Great explanation of that on the 448. I'm reminded, Kathy, of the question you asked a little bit ago about our other states focusing their performance funding on graduate retention. This is not dissimilar. over the last year or so with my colleagues from around the country. We have seen a couple presentations around program review and approval, and I've been poking on it a lot. And asking, so what does your state do? What does your state do? What does your state do? I think we have an opportunity, reflecting on what Secretary Jenner said, to lead here. There just aren't three models nationally doing this. You as a commission, we've had broad statutory language because we do program review and approval. But not the strength of really getting that clarity that, look, the executive and the legislative branch are together in this. Very specifically to think about those things, second bullet point under refresh that process, looking at those things like outcomes, job placement, wages, including credit for private learning and so forth. And to reflect, it's actually about 3,400 public programs and degrees, 3,000 or so on the private side, inside. And right to really understand all resources, no matter how fast they may look, again, think of the $26 billion to which you referred, Secretary Jenner. Numbers like that always just seem beyond my comprehension. So the fact of the matter is they are finite. And I think we have learned that with the revenue increase projected for 1.6 billion, and then a Medicaid increase of 1.6 billion. If scarcity wasn't clear in that instance, I don't know what would be. So all of that to say, as Greg said, the institutions are doing a great job. That there is a reason we are 8th in the nation for attracting students. Great programs, great schools, relevant and so forth. But we think that can be strengthened, especially for better outcomes for Hoosiers and for better outcomes in our economy. So this is a really exciting piece for us. It was, I think, the day that I formally offered this role to the Chief Academic Affairs Officer, to Matt Butler, a month or so before he was going to start. And I said, well, I'd like you to start with me, because be thinking about this, because we are going to really tackle it, in earnest with our partners at the institutions, with employers and others, to really up our game here in Indiana. So sorry it took so much time, Greg, but I wanted folks to know that this is going to lead to a whole lot of other things. And the credit for private learning component that's in there too, there's a lot of language in there, including around military, but military service, really language that can set us on a course to be leaders in credit for private learning. If you think of the core transfer library that we have, that Dr. Sauer was so instrumental in developing, it just makes it so much more seamless for students across our institutions. Folks, we can have something like that with credit for prior learning. By the way, I'm not suggesting exactly like that, but right, we can have that ability as a state because we've done this kind of things before. And I'll be quiet now. Greg, you know this is the part that I really get wound up about, then the stackable side that you're going to talk about next.
Quick question on this. I'm excited. I look forward to hearing about changes and maybe revisions in the review process. My question on that second bullet item is, do you anticipate this will be retroactive? Do you anticipate that we will need to look back at the 3,000, 3,400 plus programs and reevaluate and look at hold our universities and institutions accountable for the job labor alignment, for graduation and that sort of thing?
So Commission Member Cabello, thank you for the question. We're in complete alignment with our thinking is tied directly with your question, in that it's not just focused on new degree program approvals, but it also sets a standard timeline for program review. And we think that that's really important. So, yeah. And, across the board, this really, as Commissioner Lowry, I think, was highlighting, codifies the direction in which the commission was moving already. And so I think it supercharges the work that, Dr. Butler and his team have been embarking on. And so we're really excited for this part in particular. And did you have another question? I'm sorry. And kind of moving down to the second component.
Can I offer a comment?
I have someone online.
This may be blasphemous in the higher education field, but I think we ought to go to the other end and have the universities run profit and loss statements on their degree programs. The fact that it loses money is not necessarily an excuse to kill the program, but there has to be some other redeeming qualities to keep the program alive if it loses a lot of money and there's nothing else going for it. They've got to face the market realities as a product they're offering being bought by the customers.
That brings up a point that came with senators yesterday who were talking about kind of in a room, kind of questioning, is it also looking at very low enrollment? If you've had 3 kids in 5 years in a program and yet and these are tough conversations, I understand, but part of the goal is being very transparent about the 3,400 programs and where we're seeing the best result. Let's invest more in those.
Yeah, we agree completely, Secretary General and Greg. And also for everyone, points I know, Larry, you made, Secretary General, there are components and language like that, looking at enrollment in the bill, looking at debt load and things like that. What is the practicality or probability of, these having success in the marketplace and measuring and saying, did we have it or not? Your point about, low enrollment, 3 or 4 people and so forth, that for the first time, really digging into these things.
Appreciate that comment, Commissioner Lowry. And I would completely agree. I mean, with what we see on the board, labor market alignment, job placement, that's really just a snapshot of the different criteria that are in Senate Bill 448. And that's very important because we are looking at this topic very holistically. So thank you.
Can I just make one comment? I think it's important, maybe this is the first time that I've actually disagreed with something, but there is a perception in some of the commentary that universities actually aren't being responsive, and that is not accurate. In fact, institutions have mechanisms in place to review under-enrolled programs, take action on those programs, and work with faculty. And so I think we need to be careful in mischaracterizing how universities work, because we actually do have mechanisms that are thoughtful, deliberative, respect faculty's purview of creating a curriculum. What this does is it actually puts in place a clear structure in the law that allows the commission to engage with that. And as I've conveyed to both the commissioner and to Dr. Butler, my expectation and hope as a faculty member in the state would be that process is deliberative, collaborative, and that some of those existing norms in the institutions themselves aren't disrupted to the point of being detrimental, or aren't disrupted to the point of potentially undermining the excellent work that faculty do to lift these programs in the first place.
Yeah, and with all due respect, Dr. Lockmiller, I think this is the opportunity for higher education to prove some of that. Because the sentiment that you describe is real. It's beyond Indiana, it's nationwide. So what an opportunity for Indiana to lead on this, to affirm the value of some of these programs, and to be honest about some that may not be as valuable as they used to be. I think an honest conversation is key, and it's long overdue, because that sentiment's real.
If I may dive into the second component of the bill, this is one that we are also very excited about. And Secretary Jenner, you hinted at it a little bit earlier. I think, to your point, this really enables, Indiana in a very deliberate way to establish a much more permeable, nimble P-to-20 system. And so we're really excited for that. From our side as well, I think it, complements, kind of fits hand in glove with some of the great work that's been being produced by iLab, led by the Richard M. Fairbanks Foundation and many others across the state to advance youth apprenticeship. So excited about that as well.
And Greg, I would add too, and this is kind of reflecting on Dr. Lockmiller's comments too. I think what we know in this area of stackable credentials is various institutions are doing just really amazing work to ensure that. I know Dave Tucker this morning alluded to some of the things. I was hoping you could dig into it a little bit further for your sakes. But when the individual who earns the industry certification and how that's mapped all the way up through the bachelor's degree in applied sciences that they offer. I mean, like, that's the kind of thing we need to be doing. So that then whether it's that 15-year-old who is a sophomore in high school and this or this or this, that he or she can see how that maps through a degree. Or likewise, the 45-year-old who says, I want to go back and how can I get what I need today to improve my lot in life, but then realizing, well, jobs change, the economy changes. So will I be wasting my time when the skills that I have today are changed somewhat so that, again, Hoosiers have the advantage of knowing where those Secretary General referred to them maybe as on and off ramps, where those on and off ramps are, and that they don't, to steal that metaphor, that they don't take a turn and then they're at a dead end. I think this is critical. Again, a lot of really good work has begun. I was going to reference institutions and specific things I know among the 7 publics they're each doing. But I think bringing that standard, as you and I talked about, Dr. Lockmiller, whether it's to the review process or stackability, and just being hyper intentional, whether it's those CBE classes and industry certification, bachelor's degree, what is contained therein. There's just a lot of opportunity here to serve Hoosiers even more effectively.
Okay, and rounding out the bill, there's also a report from MPH, or the Management Performance Hub, which is a state agency that does a lot of great work around business intelligence and data and supporting our state agencies. To my point earlier about aligning to workforce demand, this component of the bill, I think, is critical in requiring the MPH to annually report the number and types of credentials needed to fill key roles in Indiana's economy, and then backing that and comparing to the number and types of credentials earned by Hoosiers. So I think that is really actionable data to support all the work that we do in the education vertical.
What is NPH?
Yeah, thank you, Commission Member Garatoni. It is the Management Performance Hub, and they are a state agency focused on business intelligence that works, especially if there are multiple state agencies trying to tackle a problem, they help identify a solution.
Terrific, thank you.
And Larry, thanks for that. This is Chris. Thanks for that question. I was about to add, Management Performance Hub. To pull together the kind of data we need comes from data streams, as Greg was saying, various state agencies. Larry, you'll remember this one very clearly of anybody involved in this meeting. Some years back at Ivy Tech, when I was still in that role with the workforce side of the institution, we determined we were going to do a review every year of every program at every campus. And among the things we were going to do was a supply, demand, and wage analysis. Wow. This would have been like birthday and Christmas gift in one for us at the time, because finding all those data sets, getting all the agreements, pulling them together, et cetera, to have been able to go, hey, we can just go to MPH. I really mean it would have been a gift. It took a while. By the way, I don't think MJ's here, but they do a really laudable job, they being Ivy Tech, and that work. They did the really great stuff after I left, this is one of those things. It kind of looks bureaucratic even and kind of nerdy. Wow. Dr. Lockmiller, I think you and I even talked about this as institutions do their reviews, very robust processes, to have the ability to understand what other institutions are doing. I think you call it a framework, you and I talk, I can't remember, but a framework, and to be able to also compare across institutions, right? This only seems logical to me. This is market analysis, in my view, will really be a game changer. And the last bullet point, had you talked yet about that?
Not yet.
I'll leave that to you. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Lowry. The last component of the bill focuses on increasing Indiana resident enrollment at our public institutions. As Secretary Jenner highlighted earlier, that part of the bill has probably drawn the most conversation so far, and I think that it's been very productive. So I won't go into too much detail on this part of the bill. In its present form, requires our public institutions by the 26-27 academic year to enroll at least 50% of their freshman class having been Indiana residents. So I think what I do want to focus on is the intent. And I want to emphasize Commissioner Lowry's point earlier in that, we need more students to go to college. We especially need more Indiana residents. And so we've been doing a lot of things at the commission to help boost that. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at Indiana residents, those that come away with a degree or credential, 3/4 of them end up staying in the state. And so we're really excited to continue to have discussions and conversations about this part of the bill. We think that it's very important, and we'll have, updates on that for you all soon. All right, so that wraps up discussion on 448. The remainder of my presentation will be focused on just a few bills, as I highlighted, that impact our operations at the commission. The first is House Bill 1049, Public Service Attorney Scholarships. This was authored by Representative Steuerwald. And really, the origin of this bill, some of you might recall, the Supreme Court has been really focused on Indiana's attorney shortage over the past few years. And so in spring of 24, the Supreme Court established a commission, that would really dive into this particular issue and come up with solutions for solving the shortage. So this bill is a product of those conversations over the past year. So it would charge the commission with administering the program. Applicants, of course, would need to be, as part of eligibility criteria, admitted to an accredited Indiana law school. And similar to some of our programs, such as the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship, which Commissioner Lowry highlighted earlier, it does have a service requirement. So upon finishing law school, passing the bar, applicants would be required to serve as deputy prosecuting attorneys or public defenders for a period of 5 years. And so for the amount of scholarship received, a portion of that scholarship would be forgiven for each year of service. So the funding, the way that would flow would be, analogous to our Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship.
Does their proposal include funding for the scholarship?
Yeah, so the bill does not make an appropriation. It was heard and passed out of the House Education Committee. In fact, this week, Commission Member Alley, and has been recommitted to the Ways and Means Committee, since it does have a fiscal impact. Yeah, okay. The amount of scholarship ranges depending on whether a student is full-time or part-time. In the bill's current iteration, for full-time students, it's a total of $20,000 per year, up to 3 years. For part-time students, that would drop down to $15,000, but it does allow them to use the work for 4 years. So in either case, total of $60,000. So that will go to Ways and Means for a hearing.
And you hit the nail on the head. Any bills that are asking for new money that don't presently have budget lines, it will be very tough for them to get it across the line.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the reality. Now, those of you who want this bill to pass and who want it, maybe, it's just gonna be, it's gonna be very tough.
Yeah.
Keep skipping ahead. There we go. House Bill 1111 is the Indiana National Guard's agency bill. So there are a number of different parts of that bill. Specifically, as it relates to us, the bill would expand the National Guard supplemental grant to in-demand apprenticeships, as well as other approved credentials. So for those of you that maybe aren't as aware of this program, it is one of our financial aid programs that we administer at the Commission for Higher Education. Presently, it can be used for qualifying associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, and can be used at the graduate level as well. So it would just expand it 2 additional options for members of the Army or Air National Guard. Both student groups are eligible. The second.
Before you move on.
Yeah.
Do we have a question online? Larry, did you have a question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
And there is one other component to the bill that I'll mention. It would allow a recipient of the National Guard Supplemental Grant, who is also a 21st Century Scholar, to use the National Guard Supplemental Grant for room and board expenses for a period of 2 years. So to kind of take a step back and explain that, because both of these awards fund tuition, in the past it was one or the other. So simply that would expand eligibility to both and allow we looked at some data recently in last academic year, there were about 100 students who would have fallen into this category. And this bill has really flown through the House. It's already passed the House and it's been referred to the Senate. So we will continue to keep an eye on this bill throughout the remainder of session. Next is House Bill 1326, which focuses on teaching scholarships. This is authored by Representative Heine. And you'll probably recall for the last 2 legislative sessions, he has been a passionate champion of addressing Indiana's teacher shortage and doing that by way of creating the Transition to Teaching Scholarship, which the public policy team administers at the Commission for Higher Education and allows those with a bachelor's degree who have, a desire to contribute to future classrooms to make that career transition. So what the bill does for the Transition to Teaching Scholarship is that it does shift the income guidelines of that program. And to go back to last legislative session, the General Assembly did make that a need-based award. There is a standard income guideline of $100,000 for any applicant to that scholarship. So what this bill would do is shift the income guidelines to align with the choice scholarship eligibility. So the main distinction between what is current practice and this change is that there are income brackets depending on family size. The second part of the bill, again, kind of the overall theme of this bill, I would say, is expanding flexibility. We administer, in addition to the Transition to Teaching Scholarship, 4 other teaching-based awards. And what this bill would do would allow us, for example, if there is unmet need in the high needs scholarship that we provide for STEM teachers, we could pull that from, another fund that has a leftover balance remaining at the end of the fiscal year. So it really just expands current practice that already exists between the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship and the Transition to Teaching Scholarship.
Question, Greg.
Hi, I was curious about this program. I don't really know much about it, but is it the same sort of situation as the prior scholarships where they're given like loan forgiveness, or is it while they are in that major, they are able to receive that sort of scholarship or grant?
Yeah, so only 2 of our teaching scholarships have a service requirement. That's the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship and the Transition to Teaching Scholarship. Both of those are a 5-year commitment for our students, and we waive 20% of that scholarship total for each year of service completed.
So for those who may switch majors, are they still eligible towards this? If, like, let's say they were 2 years undergrad for a different major and then switched to teaching, would they still be eligible for that?
Yeah, so if I were, a philosophy major for 2 years and decided, teaching is my calling, I want to do it, with the Next Generation Hoosier Educator Scholarship, so long as that student has 2 years of 2 academic years remaining in their undergraduate career, they could be eligible. So it's about 75% of our students we select each year are high school learners. The other 25% come from current college students who have eligibility remaining. Thank you for the question. House Bill 1515, Education and Higher Education Matters. This bill, authored by Representative Boehning, has a number of different areas that it impacts. We weren't tracking this bill as heavily until yesterday when there was language amended into the bill during House Education about the Workforce Ready Grant. So the Workforce Ready Grant is a program that is focused on high demand, high wage certificate programs with the Commission for Higher Education. So anything from advanced manufacturing to business services. What it does, there is an educational attainment cap for that award currently. So individuals with bachelor's degrees, associate degrees, or who have earned Workforce Ready Grant eligible certificates are not currently eligible for the program. The only thing that this bill currently does is strikes the limitation on certificates and would allow individuals who have already earned a Workforce Ready Grant eligible certificate to utilize the award. I think the intent behind this is, and we saw this, Commissioner Lowry and I were actually just chatting about it the other day. We were able to expand the Workforce Ready Grant during the COVID-19 pandemic with some federal funding and support Hoosiers who were making career transitions. You would likely see the same thing play out with this, change, really focused on those, job seekers who are looking to pivot from one place to another.
And I do think that was partly the source of the interest by folks in the legislature to look at it. At the time, it's about taking Hoosiers to the next level. I remember very well because I was involved in that as part of the state's rapid recovery team. And I couldn't speak on behalf of Representative Fanning, certainly, but I think that understanding and recognition that the shelf life, if you will, of skills is shrinking much more rapidly than what it used to. I think, in fact, the latest estimate was going from 5 to a year and a half, that those are just realities of a rapidly moving economy, especially from a technological standpoint. So just additional information on it, one way or the other about it, but that was probably a bit of the way in which was informed.
Commissioner, the shelf life of what?
Yeah, thank you, Beverly. So there are analyses that look at, in essence, the length of time that a specific skill set is still adequate. The Brookings Institution, for example, several years ago, did a really interesting analysis of how those changes would take place. I think it was between 2018 or 19 and 2030. And not surprisingly, right, in Indiana and any place else, the slope of the curve starts to go like this. And right, certainly with things like quantum computing, its impact, artificial intelligence and so forth. So, which I think is a signal to all of us, we've got to keep our skills refreshed just constantly. And it goes back to the whole stackable system and on and off ramps. You'll be able to just get back on, get what you need, and go on with whatever else in life it is that you need to be doing. But thanks for that. That's a great question.
Okay, and diving into the last bill is Senate Bill 285, Comparative College and Career Information. It moved through the Senate Education and Career Development Committee yesterday and has been recommitted to appropriations. So the fiscal committee in the Senate focused on this one, been tracking it. It does a couple of different things. Chiefly, tasked the commission with developing an interactive website called the Student Horizon Dashboard. And Brooke, Kyle, and I have had several conversations on this, seeing where it may align with a lot of the really rich data that we provide already. So we've been having some conversations on that front. But the bill's focused on a number of different outcomes and measures looking at post-secondary education, attainment, career and technical education, earnings, student debt. And so it would require the commission to publish a dashboard, which, probably has a little bit more fiscal impact than maybe something more stagnant on a website. And the other part of it is a student graduate horizon scorecard, which brings in a lot of the same elements, but is a little bit more targeted, looking to inform consumers on things like the 50 highest paying, degrees here in Indiana, 20 highest CTE pathways, and other factors. With this, it would be something that the commission would be required to distribute to public schools, charter schools, and accredited non-public schools for student and family consumption.
Isn't there some kind of a product? I mean, we've been shown a demonstration of something similar to this in previous years. I seem to recall there's a product out there, and I don't know if this replicates that or enhances that, or what impact that may have.
Yeah, Mike, you do recall correctly, some projects that Dr. Sauer has been involved in, a couple of others that have come before you. And I think they're at various stages of development. Some needing a lot of development still, and some that are, we would say, pull it off the shelf, and some that are certainly a lot closer to probably what we're looking for as a state, or what I believe the authors are probably talking about.
And we've been engaged in discussions on this bill, and will continue to be so.
Hopefully we can build off something we've developed to some extent rather than starting all over.
You remind me, who's the bill author?
Senator Byrne.
That's right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Question, I'm interested, you mentioned that like the student graduate Horizon scorecard, it will be reflective of where the students, the top paying jobs are right now. It's interesting that they use the word horizon, because I think that forward as opposed to backwards. So is it forward looking, projecting, or is it past?
I think it's to, while I won't speak on the author's behalf, I would assume the intent is, arming consumers, students with information to help them make, wise, forward-thinking choices with regards to education and training options beyond high school.
So I would hope, and that's right, I think, so then I would hope that we would really be looking to the horizon forecasting. I don't care what it is right now, because quite honestly, 5 years is gonna change. And so this is my feedback of, I really want it to be horizon looking as opposed to.
Great comment and question, Kathy. I assure you, so do I. So do we. If we won't bore you with more numbers and things, but even the most recent study from the Center on Educational Workforce at Georgetown University, looking at the 2030 or 31 projections and what types of skills and so forth are going to be needed. And they're just forecasts, as we all know. The forecast, there's nothing else about a forecast you know is wrong for the moment you give it, but the closer you can get to being, to being accurate, right, is where it's really helpful. So, I believe that's the full intent, and it certainly is of ours to be forward-looking, saying what is the impact going to be in the future. So, all the technological advancements, I think we're all tracking, saying those are the things we have to keep our eye on.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Lowry. I'll add just one comment, Commissioner Member Cavea, before transitioning to the next slide. We are really keeping our eyes on all data bills, and Brooke and I are having continued conversations on that front. I mean, we share the same intent, I think, with Senator Byrne and other legislators who, have ideas similar to this one, is that we want to provide our students and families with, clear, concise information that's actionable and can help them chart, whatever path they decide to seek beyond high school. So, we'll continue to do that. Thank you. And I'm sorry, one more bill I forgot I had. So Senate Bill 365 is Education Matters, which is authored by Senator Rotz. The first couple parts of the bill focus on various return on investment analyses that for some topics would be required of the Commission for Higher Education in coordination with other state partners. There's also a provision tasking the Department of Education to do the same as far as return on investment for adult education programs. I believe were mentioned in that part of the bill as well. At risk of repeating myself, we've been, kind of talking about this all day. We want to be, aligned to the labor market, ensure that, our investment for that we're making is great for students, our employers, and ultimately future taxpayers. So, and, frankly, with some of the programs that we would be charged to produce a return on analysis investment, the data is there, it's rich, and thanks to Brooke and her team, it's readily available. So whether that is college going, completion rates continuing to climb, as well as the rate at which our students stay in the state of Indiana, that's a very good story that we can tell. So those are kind of the first two components of the bill. The last one, and I'll just be briefly on, has to do with the career coaching grant. As many of you will recall, this was one of the biggest pieces that was created as a result of House Bill Act 102 back in the 2023 session, and really helping, providing supports and services to our students so that they, early on, not, by the time they've graduated high school and entered college, but early on are exploring their interests, capacities, capabilities. So we received a $25 million appropriation during the 23-25 biennium, selected about 30 intermediaries to carry out this grant, and they are delivering some fantastic services that are aligned to, the former 3E grant, really hyper-focused on career exploration, engagement, and experience, and doing really good work. And so simply what the bill does, there's a little bit of language that modifies the language and code about the career coaching grant, some around eligibility of intermediaries, and also gives a little bit more direction on the supports and services and expectation of career coaches being supported by the grant. So with that, Madam Chair, Commissioner Lowry, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to stand for any other questions the commission might have.
Real quickly, Greg, I'm only gonna add to what you said about the return on investment. Frank Van and 21st CTE are called out here. I think commission members, you probably know anyway, this is where we've been headed anyway with the commission. It's, I think about the work that Brooke and her team have done in business intelligence. A lot of this has started, frankly, the ROI analysis that we did 2 years ago around 21st century to help build the case. It was like, what is it, bailing wire, tape, whatever the saying is. That's what it was like to build that. We got such a slicker process now, much richer data and so forth. The data, the insights you see in those 4x4s on economic and social impact of attainment beyond no high school diploma are very much part and parcel of that. So anyway, we're already heading there anyway, to the degree it's codified. And, those who follow us are required to do that. So be it, even better.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on the stretch. So we have 4 academic degree programs for expedited action. They're in the agenda book beginning on page 13. And Dennis, I don't know if you want to give any additional information or comments on any of this?
Thank you. And I did want to say just to introduce these, and you just mentioned the 4 programs, actually 3 bachelors and 1 master's, but I'd be remiss if I didn't start by saying how much I appreciate Dr. Butler, his transition into the role, because he's just been outstanding in prepping us and helping us to get ready for review for each of these programs, even as we do our homework. Thank you. Then I also want to appreciate Dr. Lockwood, because it was his insight that actually challenged us to think more critically about this word of applied. As we see it so much, so interestingly, each of these programs have this applied prefix to them. And so it's important in this mind that we actually have a common understanding about what we mean. Now we're evaluating things similarly as we look at different programs coming from different schools, we really have to understand what this word applied means. So with that, we have these 4 programs, 3 from Purdue Global, and then the 1 from Purdue Fort Wayne. So yes, we present these for expedited, for consideration as expedited items. Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion for expedited action on these 4 programs?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. There is another order of business in the academic affairs, and it's great, Commissioner Bland, that you talked about Dr. Butler, because before we move on, we want to put forth a formal recommendation from the commission for Dr. Matt Butler, Senior Associate Commissioner and Chief Academic Officer, to be appointed to serve as Indiana's Midwestern Higher Education Compact, that's MHEC, Commissioner. In an interstate compact, MHEC brings together Midwestern states to develop and support best practices, collaborative efforts, and cost-sharing opportunities. Through these efforts, it works to ensure strong, equitable post-secondary educational opportunities and outcomes for all. So you might recall Dr. Sauer talking about this because he's represented us for a very long time. And Matt has stepped into those shoes and I think is very capable. And we talked a little bit offline that he has some interactions with this group anyway. So I would like to entertain a motion that Dr. Matt Butler be our representative.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I think it'll take me longer to put the mic back in the stand than just to finish up the last item, which is that we have some informational items. They are in the handbook. There's an academic degree program, so there's an action section, academic degree program actions taken by staff, and then just the media coverage that we generally do. Any old business? Any new business? All right, so the next meeting of the commission is March 13th in Indianapolis. And also we want to remind you of the upcoming AI session, if you can make it. Malcolm Lynn has put together February 7th. Well, if you can make it, it would be great, but otherwise, we will see everyone in March and we stand adjourned.